repeat that we convened at 6:03. First is recognition of visitors, and I'm not aware that we have any visitors. Next item is the consent agenda, the clerk's report approval of minutes, the minutes of the meeting for December 2nd. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Tim. And second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Michelle. So it's moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the December 2nd meeting, 2020. Any discussion or any changes? Hearing none, all those in favor, please indicate by unmuting and saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? The minutes are accepted. Next is communications. Oh, I forgot to, there are a couple of little changes in the agenda. Actually, there are no changes. There's an additional communication, sorry. And it was around the Nordic skiing and the winter sports decision. And there was a concern about or asking the district to find some way to help the governor understand that Nordic skiing is one of the lowest threat or lowest danger of infection sports there are, and see if we couldn't find some ways to encourage him to lift the ban on that particular winter sport. There may be others as well. So I just wanted to bring that to the attention of the board and see if people wanted to either contact the Agency of Education or any of the organizations, the lobbying organizations, the Superintendent's Association or the Business Managers or the Principals Association, which has a fair amount to do, or the Headmasters Association in the past had a fair amount to do with sports. And also, and so anyway, those organizations and also our legislators, and see if we can bring some pressure to bear to get that ban lifted. It would be really great if the kids could practice, especially since we're expecting snow tonight. Any comments from the board or thoughts from the board on that? I have a comment from the public, but I wanted to give the board a chance to. No, okay, Jody? Oh, Thomas says.
I was just saying it sounds reasonable to me. That's
Okay,
perfect.
great. Jody?
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to encourage you to do this. I've contacted a lot of people up there, and do the Principals Association, do Dr. Levine, he's very easy, he'll answer you. Do all those people that you can possibly do, because it's kind of ridiculous to compare Nordic skiing to something like indoors. So, thank you.
Yep, I agree. And the thing I forgot to mention is that the trick is to get somebody who happens to pass by the governor at some point in the next few days to get him to put that on his list, because I'm pretty confident that he's not looking into these things. He's being advised, and somebody just kind of let that one slip. So it's just a matter of getting the governor's attention, or Dr. Levine would obviously be another good one. And I'm sure they'll act on it. It's just a matter of getting their attention. So no further comments on that. I wanted to move directly to another communications issue, and this one was in the warning, reviewing the next steps in the establishment of leadership councils. And I wanted to go back a little bit. Let me find my page here, and kind of run through the history of the Leadership Council and the purposes of the Leadership Council, and then look at some of the language that's behind establishing it, some of the structures around it. So as many of you know, in the first 2 years, a number of communication gaps have become apparent, and recently it's become clear that we're not providing an effective system for hearing from all the stakeholders in the school community. Our leadership councils were intended to provide that system, and we've been very patient and careful not to be prescriptive, to let the councils develop and to reflect the character of each unique school community. But reoccurring communication failures during this pandemic have revealed the weaknesses of this approach. And we haven't created the consistent, resilient, effective structure that we need. And the leadership councils, they're not just policy or a useful practice. They're a voter-approved article. It's a foundational principle of the district. More voters supported the creation of these leadership councils than voted to require town approval to close a school. It was overwhelmingly ratified by the community, and it's now part of our foundational articles. And the board recognizes the need for all voices to have a forum to be heard. And Leadership Council is that forum. The Act 46 Design Committee included it in their articles, their proposed articles. The Alternative Governance Structure Committee also included it in those proposed articles. The State Board of Education did not include anything around community engagement in the merger articles that they forced on us, the ones that formed this district. So the board very quickly proposed and the voters endorsed the creation of this communication structure. So some have focused on the advisory nature of these structures and have tried to rename them advisory councils. And I want to be really clear. The intention in these councils is leadership. The leadership of our community in determining the direction of our schools. So I want to take a little time to make this clear. And I want to share the screen here for a second. And show you some of the documents in the background of all this. The first is this is the statute on the duties of school boards. And it lays down the foundation of what we're supposed to be doing. And we seem to need to go over this often because a lot of people don't seem to understand the extent or the purpose of the district and the duties. It's a duty. It's not, they don't call it the powers of school board. We call it the duties of school boards. And it's to determine the educational policies of the district and to approve or disapprove rules and regulations proposed by the principal or superintendent for the conduct and management of the public schools in the district, to approve and disapprove. The other really salient point is further down in the list, and it's to exercise the general powers given to a legislative branch of a municipality. So they're talking about a town or a school district as a municipality. So basically that's the structure, that's the statute behind what we're supposed to be doing. So I just want to be really clear that this is very much within our charge or within our duties, creating this communication structure. It's in policy well ahead of the formation of the merged district. It was in our policies in several different points. And I want to, again, just kind of reinforce these messages. We've seen a couple of these in the past when we went through some of the salient policies earlier in the year, but I just want to reinforce this message that under board relations with school personnel, staff participation in the development of educational and personnel policies will be encouraged and facilitated by the board. The development of educational policies is the key part there. And then in the school community relations policy, create a planned, systematic, two-way communication process between the board and the school community. That pretty much defines what we've done with the leadership councils. And again, with parent involvement, parents should be provided opportunities to become informed about program design, operation, and evaluation, and to communicate with educators on these subjects. Again, the Leadership Council is the forum where that can take place. It's a structure. It's a structure that we put in place so that these policies would be mandated. And the article itself really gets to the heart of why leadership councils were put in place. And again, for the people who followed the 706B merger committee conversations closely are really familiar with this. The people that followed or participated in the alternative governance structure are also very familiar with this, but most people didn't do that. Most people didn't go to those meetings or watch the 2 or 3 hour meetings every couple of weeks on TV. But if you did, you would know that the purpose of leadership councils was to pretty much protect against, to ensure community input and protect against the loss of individual boards in the 4 communities that were losing their school districts, to keep that from diminishing and for community members to be able to engage with the school board. And this is the language from the article that was passed. This is the language that was voted on November 19th, 734 yay, 80 nay. There were 7 blank ballots. So that's what this is meant to do. It's meant to create a communication forum so that the district, so that the towns, the community members, the staff, the principals, the parents, the community members, and the board have a communications, have a forum, have a structure in place to enhance communications. Teachers and staff members will be nominated by their fellow faculty and staff members. That was in the draft language, and it was very much the intention of this process. And I'm not sure, we haven't really followed up to make sure that the teachers knew about that and were choosing their own members. So that's something else we want to reemphasize and follow up on. And the last thing is the responsibilities that were listed again in the document, in the article that was passed, that was passed by the community vote. The two of the responsibilities are communicating community values and expectations to the board and supporting school and district communication. So again, very clearly, this is meant to be a communication structure. And I wanted to make that really clear and go through those documents and go through the really founding, the ideas and the policies and thoughts behind forming those councils. And then talk with the board about consider directing the leadership committees to meet every 2 weeks, to schedule meetings very soon, immediately schedule meetings for early January, and take up and prescribe to the committees taking up an agenda around problem solving around the operations in the schools while the pandemic restrictions continue. The failure, plainly the failure of the communication structures in place to really adequately engage everybody makes it really necessary for the board to take a much more prescriptive role in this, at least for the foreseeable future. So that's what I would like the board to consider. We don't have a motion yet. We can have a motion to work from, or we can go directly into the conversation. I see that Tim and Jackie have their hands up, so I guess we'll start with conversation. Again, this is not something we've done before. It's new. I think it's necessary. So I really encourage people to comment and help clarify this and so we get the right decision, we make the right decision and improve our communication structure. Tim, go ahead, please.
Okay, so one group of stakeholders not mentioned in this are students. I've been thinking about civic education and how important it would be for the education of students to see that they have a role in what happens in the district. So I take it that there's no place for students and LCs, but we are working for their participation on the board, right?
Actually, there is the language did say students were appropriate, whether, meaning primarily that they're old enough to be able to participate. Yeah, thanks, Tim. Jackie?
Thanks. I have a question and then probably a whole bunch of comments. Sorry about that.
Okay.
The question is, it looks like, so we got this mandate and then developed our own policy. Is that the H7 Leadership Council policy that I was able to find? Is that something we developed?
Yeah, that was something that was developed based on the language in the article once the article passed.
Okay, perfect. So then, well, my question is if this is something the board could take a look at again, now that we have got some time into it and some meetings and, different circumstances, just to see if the layout, like all the instructions in our policy, are really making sense for everybody. And a couple examples, there are some leadership councils that maybe haven't met, or maybe they have and we don't know about it, and maybe it would be appropriate to mandate meetings for them. But then as far as mandating meetings for councils that are already meeting successfully, like I wouldn't feel good about telling a school that's meeting monthly, that's having good communication in those meetings and that is working for them, that now you have to meet twice monthly. I think that could be a kind of a heavy lift. And also, I don't know that every school necessarily needs to meet as often as every other school. Like the leadership councils should have some choice in what's working for them. So let's see. I feel like I don't have my thoughts on this super clear, and I'm sorry for that. So we also have a situation at Green Street where pretty much the PTO members are the same as the leadership council members. And in the beginning, I wasn't sure about that, but now having been in many of those meetings, it makes a lot of sense. It seems, again, like a heavy lift to get two separate groups of people that are just as invested in the school. And also a lot of the things that are on our policy under the leadership council business are things that maybe PTOs generally take care of anyway. So I would want to talk about that. Robert's rules seem super formal for these meetings. So I wondered if we could talk about not mandating that we follow Robert's rules, that we just have meetings in a more informal and kind of relaxed way so that it can feel less micromanagey to people. And I think that, and that's maybe an unkind word, micromanagey, but I do think that there's a feeling in the district that might be one of the reasons that people are not having these meetings successfully, because they feel like it's the board micromanaging what they're going to do, and maybe they aren't too thrilled about that. And I don't know, we might just have more success if we could kind of relax some of the mandate, and I just think we should take another look at the language of our policy. I know there are schools that are having really successful leadership council meetings, and we should figure out what's working and what's not working for the schools it's not working for. But I would shy away from trying to mandate that everybody do everything the exact same way, because we have schools that are doing things very differently, but it is still working. So if there was room to take a look at the whole policy again, I'd love to do that. Understanding that schools that haven't met yet, yes, need to meet because we have communication failure. But I don't think the answer is blanket instructions for everybody, because it's working in some places.
Thanks. Just a process clarification. This is an article. So if we wanted to change, we could change the policy, but we couldn't contradict what's in the article. The article is passed by the voters. We either have an annual meeting or an Australian ballot on the change on the amendment. So that's what we would do. I think that the question about monthly or twice a month, I think is a good one. I think should be some flexibility in that. I think well, I'll hear from other people. Thank you. Also, I'm gonna, since I'm seeing who's signing up here, and I see a lot of former board members, so I'm gonna just kind of go down the line as people raise their hands rather than just do the board first, since this is really the board and community and administrative structure. So anybody that has a comment, please go right ahead. And Kelly Diaz.
Thanks, David. Hi, everybody. Jackie, I appreciate what you said. That's a lot of what I was feeling and thinking too, that schools really have different needs and they're working on really different initiatives with a lot of collective goals as a district, but different priorities per school site. So I think that's really important. And last year when we started up our leadership council, Christina Naylor, I had asked her about Robert's rules, and she said that leadership councils could choose their particulars themselves. So if Robert's rules felt too formal, we didn't have to use them. So that felt good. We don't use them because that was okayed by her, and it felt like really too hard to really have a conversation when we had to adhere to those. If we had a huge group, maybe we would put those into practice. But David, my initial hand was up because you said that our communication channels have failed, and that frankly hurts to hear you say that without any specific examples. So I'm wondering if you could give us some specifics about what you mean, because our annual parent survey, which is really important to principals, indicates that we're doing a good job communicating with our community. We rate really high on those numbers across the board. And especially during COVID, I know principals have worked really, really hard to use several different modalities. We can text now through PowerSchool, we email, we robocall, we Facebook post, we post to our websites, we go to people's homes, we call them on the phone individually. So when you say our communication has failed, that feels really like a strong blanket statement. So I'm hoping maybe you could clarify that.
I can't there's a bunch I can't clarify because it's not public information yet. And we'll talk about in executive session. But I can give you some general examples, especially from the summertime when parents were wondering what's going on and we're getting very little information. And the leadership councils were not functioning at that point. There was no place for them to go. And the same with staff. They would communicate with administrators, but there was still a lot of frustration and a lot of sense of that people were not being informed and not having voice. I think it's really important to point out that it's uneven across the district. It's not a blanket failure, but there are the system of engaging everyone and having everyone's voice heard in a structured and consistent way is not working. And it's not working consistently. It's not working effectively. And I used that term because it was important in talking about this with various, with people that I consult with about in the administration and on the board. I can talk to a few people outside of the meetings. And the examples were clearly failures of communication, where people were really feeling without voice or feeling like they just didn't know what was happening and needed to know what was happening. So I can't really don't want to be more specific than that, but I think you could check with Andy if you want some more explicit information, or an executive session too. Michelle.
Yeah, okay, so this has been a topic, and it was well discussed just today at the Communication Council meeting that we had this afternoon. And we do understand that each of the schools are operating in their own way and they're serving needs that their school is holding right now. But one thing that, it's that lack of consistency when considering that this is meant to be an avenue for that looks like our systematic communication channels between stakeholders and the board. And I'm not sure if Robin Morgan is in here because
she's on the list too. She's
okay. I won't share her wise comment, but just she made it an emphasis also just about how we haven't really successfully seen, I can't say that across the board. Some of the leadership councils have developed differently, just sort of showing up and bringing information to this level so that we're understanding what's happening at the ground. But anyway, so some of the things that we identified that would be helpful, we have ideas about leadership council development. Because schools are in different places. Some started right away and had a lot of participation. Others didn't get the ball rolling until this summer and have very little participation from their school families. And it's a weird time. People are strapped and it's hectic. But we did realize, that one thing is just a lack of consistent information, probably from the board level, being distributed to all of our stakeholders about the role of the leadership council, basically a mission statement. What is the intention? What is the capability of this group coming together? And what do we do with that? So we had talked about sort of creating maybe more expansive than the few sentences that can be found on our district website, and just expanding on that information a little bit. And then just in our last meeting, I think it was the last meeting, we made it a standard to have each of the principals, when the leadership council agenda was sent to the school communities, to be sent to their entire school community every single time. And so, we talked about just adding that description every single time so that families understand, what are they seeing? What is this leadership council? Where is my role in it? What is the point of this? Because it seems to be very inconsistent comprehension of what the role of the leadership council is. And also we just have, we have new families and people don't know exactly what's going on. So a lot of it is just our ability to communicate with families in hopes that maybe we could also recruit more interest so that there is more participation. And so that was something that we had down. We're going to be working on things like some of the leadership councils don't have a designated chair. And now that I'm hearing a little bit about how some of these councils have sort of swayed off of the formal rules, that makes sense. But, I'm going to be reaching out to some of those principals because we want to have some parent contacts, because we are trying to connect people so that until we're able to have a leadership council summit where we can kind of bring everyone together and, just sort of look at the potential, that at least our chairs or sort of leadership within that might have some ideas and inspiration from one another, because we could certainly learn from each other and see what everyone's doing with their own space. But that was the big thing, was just realizing that there's been an inconsistent message to the entire district as a whole of what the role of the leadership council is, what its potential is, and sort of a lack of that connection. I think it's been helpful at the school level between administration and staff and families, but to bring it back to the board and maybe the central office administration, where we're able to hear firsthand about what each school is navigating, which was part of the point of keeping that connection. That part seems to be just non-existent, really. We're not, I say that carefully because that's not entirely true. Some of the districts are doing, some of the schools are doing a really good job showing up and reporting back to us what they're working on. But I think that that's really just the goal, is just to see something that's fairly consistent, that doesn't cap what can be covered. But we did discuss, the board sending agenda items to the leadership council, particularly looking at this situation with this pandemic. There's so many families that have questions, and there's information that we need that would be helpful to get back from each school base. And so, us adding agenda items so that we have appropriate feedback can be really helpful too, in just keeping that open communication, so there's not misunderstanding across the district, there's not confusion, and we have a consistent voice that, as this merged district, we are one and unified. That's what I have to say.
Thanks, Michelle. Kelly Young.
So I wanted to say that the BUHS Leadership Council has been meeting not every 2 weeks, but somewhat routinely, and they've had some participation by parents and students. There's been conversation about how to involve more of the community in a number of the Leadership Council meetings. There's been recently there was a community forum held at which no one other than the Leadership Council members attended. The Leadership Council seems committed to continuing efforts to schedule further community forums. And they spoke about ways to attempt community participation in the forums and engagement in general. I think having some structure and consistency would be beneficial, but I think it's important to remember that most of the people involved are volunteering their time. And though the intention may be to encourage participation, it may actually discourage people from participating. So I would encourage caution in enacting strict and rigid mandates. But I do think that Michelle's idea of agenda items going out to the leadership councils is a really good idea. I will say that from my participation on the BUHS Leadership Council, and I think that the chair does a great job, and I think that the people involved are doing a great job in participating and coming up with ideas and etc. But I think having some sort of a thing to start off the meeting with. So thank you.
Thanks, Kelly. Robin Morgan.
Hi, thanks, Dave. I just wanted to speak a little bit to some of the stuff we talked about at our meeting today, and I don't know what you were referring to about the communication failure, but to me, I see the communication both from the board to the councils and back to the board as some spots that could be improved, particularly I think, if we keep in mind that the core purpose of these leadership councils was supposed to be for the schools to have a voice at the board level, since with this number of schools in the district, there isn't room in the meetings to hear from the principals at the level of detail that we did when we just had in Brattleboro 4 schools, or the rest of the districts just 1 school to hear from. So I think that having a board member at each leadership council meeting is really essential. And so I would recommend that not only is there a board member assigned to attend each meeting, but that there also be an alternate so that as people's schedules sometimes get crazy with, I know that you guys are all on several subcommittees, that there is someone who can attend even if the main person can't make that meeting, because otherwise, what is the point of these discussions if they're not going to be reported back to the board? And I also think that communication coming, like some other people have said, with some stuff that the board wants to know from the councils, please discuss this thing, and then the board member can report back what was said, is really important as well. And I think, you know, we had that at our most recent Leadership Council for Academy School. There was one agenda item about the website, and there was some really good feedback. So I think that some of the councils that might still be sort of finding their legs as far as how do we turn the people who showed up to this meeting into the voice for our school at the board level, could really benefit from having some concrete suggestions of what kind of stuff does the board want to know from the schools. I also wanted to speak to the comment about the PTO and Leadership Council being aligned, because I don't really see these purposes as being the same. The PTOs are more for community engagement within the school community and fundraising for some of those things that we're allowed to fund externally from the school budget. And often the people who are interested in doing that are also really interested in being on the Leadership Council with, you know, giving this voice to schools at what's important at the board level, but it's not really the same job of both committees. So of course people can join both if they want to, but I don't think that there should be a standard thing of just folding that into one org. So thanks for listening to my lengthy comments. That's it.
Thanks, Robin. It really is, it is intended to be very different than a PTO. Beth Bristol.
Hi, good evening. I've a couple things. First, I wanted to emphasize what Kelly said in regard to communications. I think our experience has been that the principals have done a great job of communicating over the summer. I think it was a case of being able to have information to communicate, and that's a big difference from wanting to try to communicate and you just don't have the information to communicate. Secondly, I think it's important to remember that this communication issue is not new to us. Even before the merged boards have always had issues with communication and attendance at these meetings. I forget who it was. Somebody just said they held a community forum and nobody but the Leadership Council showed up. That's our experience in Guilford time and time again. You can post as many meeting notices as you want, but if nobody comes and shows up at your meeting, your communication efforts are for naught. And it gets very frustrating very quickly. We have been having Leadership Council meetings every 2 weeks in Guilford, and I don't know that our communication is any better than any other town because it's the same group of people at those Leadership Council meetings every single week. So the issue to me seems to be a bit broader in terms of community engagement and getting people to attend these meetings rather than just making these meetings more frequent. I think that's really all that I wanted to share.
Thank you. Christina.
Hi, all. I just wanted to weigh in a little bit about why the Roberts Rules and minutes were prescribed in that policy. We had gotten legal advice from Donna Russo Savage that legal counsels, because they were going to advise the board and inform the board, that then they were, in some legal sense, according to Donna Russo Savage, a subcommittee of the board. And so they had to follow Robert's Rules of Order. So that's why that was put in the policy. I'm sure you could find an attorney that would give you different advice, but you should probably consider that those rules. And there had to be minutes taken because it was going to advise the board. So I really strongly urge that the minutes continue because that increases communication and transparency. But if boards are really, if leadership councils are very concerned with using Robert's rules, you should look around for some more legal clarity around that.
Thank you. Jody?
Hi again. One of the things that I just want to say about this is that this is one of the weaknesses of the forced merger. No matter how well the leadership committees are doing, councils are doing, and I know a lot of them are doing very well, maybe in different ways, but no matter how well they're doing, they're never going to replace that local control, that local board that sits in on their school. And so this is just a weakness of the law. Thank you.
Thanks, Jody. Shannon Kelly.
Hi, everyone. I'm Shannon. I'm teaching 6th grade this year at Green Street. When I'm hearing this description and the expectations for leadership councils, it sounds really prescriptive and not PTO-like and very kind of business-like and official. And one question I have is if the chair people or the teacher representatives could be paid, or if people could be paid, or if there could be something like that considered, because I think it would increase participation, possibly. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. I hadn't thought of that, but a stipend might be wise. Sean.
Yeah, actually, I'll comment on the stipend. When I went to all of the meetings when the whole merger was, before it was even happening, and the idea of the stipend came up quite a few times. But I'd like to go back to what Jackie and Kelly said initially. Here we have a group of people, and there are a lot of community members, taking the time to come. And then to have words from the board, from the WSESD board, such as directing, it's not putting the leadership councils on the same footing. It's something under another board, which is taking away from their value. The Guilford Leadership Council, we had a meeting the other night, November 19th, there were 17 people in attendance, and it was a good community involvement. If you look at the Guilford Leadership Council agendas, you'll see just what is going on every time. There's excellent minutes taken every meeting, and then not only that, but there's a whole layout of agenda items for the ensuing year. So it really bothered me when this was put on the agenda, that it seems punitive the way it was expressed by using the word directing. I think it's the wrong approach. Once again, I'll say it, it's not a collaborative approach. And I think that if we continue on this vein, we're not going to get anywhere. So you have to be collaborative. You have to be encouraging. You have to be inclusive. All those things. And this question does not come from that direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Liz?
I'd like to point out to everybody that using Robert's Rules of Order, the simple rules, is not a big deal. It doesn't stifle our meetings at all, and it never has. So anybody who's fearful of that can just put that aside. The other thing is that, I think a lot of people are speaking more here to PTOs instead of what leadership councils are meant to do. And they're also not paying attention to the fact that a lot of community members are not happy without having their own school board. And that was, this is the in-between role. So I just wanted to add that in there. Thanks.
Thank you, Liz. Ruby?
Hi. So Ruby McAdoo, I'm the chair of the Leadership Council at PCS in Putney. And I guess the thing I wanted to raise, we have I think an effective leadership council and system of communicating back to the board. And I think that the place that is confusing me is that it feels like from my perspective, having been on this leadership council for a little over a year, we have community members who are involved. We have the administration of our school that is involved, and it feels like we're not always on the same page as far as what the board wants from us. And what I'm hearing tonight is not helping me clarify that. And the reason in my mind is really when it comes to school operations, I think I would imagine it's difficult for an administrator to, especially in a pandemic, invite more bodies and operating by committee in order to direct help with the operations of the school. I say that, but I also, we have been endeavoring to try to figure out, what about the outdoor spaces? Do we need more tents? Do we need some kind of structures? We're in the process of collaborating in that way with Herv, and but I feel like it took us a while to get there. And what it seems like, what I'm hearing from the board, or at least from this, this agenda item, is that the board actually wants more community involvement in the operational aspects of things at the school level. And that confuses me, because it's not, and maybe I'm mishearing it, but I feel like there has to be more very concrete, what does this board want from the leadership councils, and clarity around the operational roles and the administrative functions, and that, in terms of your principals, and really what this committee of the school, what its charge is. That's my comment.
Thank you, Ruby. I think thank you for all those comments. This is a communications item on the board. It's not necessarily for action, and clearly there are we need to have a number of conversations. I want to point out that the implementation of leadership councils has been uneven, which is the primary reason that this came forward. And it's always been the intention in the policy and in the article for the councils to respond to requests for information from the unified board. But the primary one has always been a place for all the stakeholders to be heard. And we've been struggling with that. So we will put this aside for now. It's not an action item, and we'll take it under advisement and maybe have the communications council talk about some more, another committee that has jurisdiction, and figure out where to go from here. But in the meantime, I hope we're raising expectations, and I hope that people will take all that has been heard into consideration, and we'll figure out where to go next. Mark Spino?
Yeah, David, am I correct in saying that every leadership council has a school board representative?
Yes.
Okay, so if there has been uneven use of leadership councils, I think school board members could work as a liaison with principals and target those areas. Because broad evaluation or evaluative comments about an entire leadership council school district really is hurtful. We routinely have 9 to 20 people attend our leadership council meetings every month. And I feel like we've done a really good job, and I know a lot of schools have done a really good job. Broad statements are not helpful. And if there is a board liaison on each leadership council, that's an avenue to go for improvement. Thanks.
Thank you. The next item is administrative reports. Andy, would you like to take over?
Sure. I'm going to try to be brief tonight because we have some principals that may want to share out a few items for
Yes.
a quick second or two. I have two retirements to share this evening. I want to let you know that Karen Duggan from Guilford Central School, she's writing to let us know of her intention to retire. Per Article 29.1 of the Master Agreement, she will retire at the end of the school year. So she loved her time at Guilford Central, at Guilford School. And we will miss Karen. So I would ask the board to take action on that retirement, and I can give you this. Do you want the second retirement, or do you want to do them one at a time?
Well, let's do Karen first, and then we'll do the other. Can I have a motion, please, to accept the resignation of Karen Duggan, a long-time participant in the Guilford school community?
I'll do that, David.
Yes, Sean?
No, it's Kelly. I'll make the motion to accept with extreme regret Karen Duggan's intention to retire.
Kelly, thank you for adding that with extreme regret component onto that. I was remiss in not stating that clearly.
Oh, I was speaking from my own experience. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah,
And I would like to second that, and I was also going to include the extreme regret. Both of my kids had Karen, and it was amazing. So, yep, she'll be hard to replace.
Mine too.
Thank you. And I almost put that into my call for the motion as well. I think anybody who knows Karen is obviously deeply affected by her. So we have a motion moved and seconded to accept with extreme regret the resignation of Karen Duggan. All those in favor, please. You can't vote no. Nice try. But all those in favor, please unmute and indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
I know you're all opposed, but I won't. Any of you want to? Any opposed? Sorry. Hearing none. We've accepted Karen's resignation. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you. Second teacher retiring is Joni Bonello from Green Street School. In Joni's last day, she will be retiring into the next school year, but we'd like to announce the retirement now. And so we will, I will put her name forward as well. So she will finish 36 days into the next school year.
Thank you. And would you send the spelling of her name to Wendy, please?
Yes, so I'll send both those to Wendy tonight.
Thank you. So can I have a motion, please, to accept with regret the resignation of Joni Bonello?
Bonello, B-O-N.
B-O-N, thank you. I guess you can't resign. Thank you. And second, please.
Seconded.
Thank you, Thomas. Moved and seconded to accept Joni Bonello's resignation. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Excuse me, David, I'm sorry to interrupt.
I'm sorry?
Sorry to interrupt, David. It's me, Wendy. I didn't catch who made the motion.
I didn't either.
I think it was Michelle Green.
Michelle, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on.
Okay, so we are in the midst of planning for second semester right now. So our target date is January 28th. We're looking at the planning is around 4 days of in-person instruction for grades K through 8. So our principals and teacher teams are working on that process right now. Families were sent a commitment survey with information. We sent that information last week about what the framework will look like in both the remote setting and the in-person setting. That's a document that was adapted from the fall and then modified for the second semester. Teachers had a chance to see that document and provide some feedback on that before sending it out. We tidied up a few things. Parents were given that information last week, as well as the survey, and schools right now are wrapping up some finalized phone calls to identify who is opting to stay remote and who's opting to stay for in-person. Now, granted, all these decisions and choices we're making and planning we're doing is all based upon whatever the health metrics will be at that time. And so that's, more information to come on that in the coming weeks. There's a bus survey that will be due as well. So just like we did for the first semester, we are going to be asking families to sign up for busing. It doesn't prevent a child, if they're eligible for transportation, from having it. We just need to have the families register with the bus company. That we found out to be a really effective way last year of creating efficient routes and monitoring the number of students on the buses. The buses will still be at step 3 and operating under those guidelines, especially in the winter. The windows will be open, so we encourage kids to dress for the weather while they're on those buses. So that's really kind of where we are with the reopening aspect of things. I did ask principals. I was prompted. I saw in the last few weeks, some of our elementary principals have been asking students to write thank you notes to community members that have really helped out at the schools this fall, or have really had an impact on their school community. So I thought that this would be a great time to share that information. And so I'll turn it over to our principals now to share some of that feedback. They've done amazing work this fall. Our principals are tired, and they've been working so incredibly hard, and universally they've all kind of agreed to, they don't know where they would have been without the support of the community members as well in this endeavor throughout this year. So I'll just turn it over to our principals now. Feel free to take a turn, everyone. Kelly, go ahead.
Well, I started really thinking about how many people I have to thank, and I actually wrote some down. So if it's okay, I would love to take the minute or so it takes to thank everybody. So number one is just the entire staff of Academy School, because we have a really incredible group of people who make hundreds of decisions every day. And one of those is the hardest decision we've all had to make lately, which is to not gather with people we love, friends, family members. And people have really gone above and beyond to adhere to that. And they've made these difficult decisions because they feel so strongly about the health and safety of our school, for our kids, and for our Academy families. So I just want to send a really public thank you to the staff at Academy. It's impacted everybody's social, emotional well-being, but when you walk in the doors, all you see is adults treating kids with so much love and respect and enthusiasm for learning. So it's just a really great example of resilience. I feel really fortunate to be part of it. And the Smith family, we are just forever indebted to them for the continued use of their land behind the school. The students and staff all love and cherish the opportunity to get outside and use the landscape. They've allowed us to put up some really neat structures and tarps and fire pits, etc. And specifically, Hank Lang has helped for a lot of hours to clear trails for us. So we really appreciate that. Hank has also been a huge proponent of the pump track that John Sessions designed with Hank and Dak Woods and many volunteers. So I just want to thank everybody who helped with the pump track. Recently, we were looking for firewood for the kids to have fires outside, and within a couple of days, we had a huge pile. So special thanks to Anson Baldwin and Aaron Bristol for donations of firewood. Sheila Humphreys and Kathy Casson have nurtured our garden and helped that whole Food Connects program grow at Academy. They've helped us write grants. They've come in weekly to help kids learn about gardening and tasting food and cooking. I also want to thank Matt Hill and Antonio Torres and Seth Bichette for going above and beyond to help us be outside. Not only do they keep it clean and safe inside, but they set up the tents without any complaints. They have built tables for us. They installed the fire rings for us. They just do it all. And they smile and they say, sure, no problem. And it's done like that day. So those are our facilities, our custodians. Bethany Ranquist, Jean Santino, and many people have donated beautiful masks to our school for staff and for kids. Now they're like new accessories. You have to match your mask to your outfit. So thank you for bringing joy to something that's not always fun to wear. Allie West has accommodated so many, just so many different ways of providing meals to kids and really fed the whole community, which I know probably all the principals will thank her for that. It's really incredible what she's been driving for us. So thank you, Allie. Shelley Doubleday has been coordinating the healthy snack program for our district. Hours and hours and hours of sorting and bagging and labeling produce that go to the other schools, and the many academy staff who come on Wednesdays to help her do that. I'm almost done. I'd like to thank Jody Metelke, Anna Ocasio, Sue Durkin, and Lori Macy for making sure that students have warm clothing. Jody's idea for the share shed has come to fruition. To the many parents and caregivers who have donated their time and supplies like tarps, cutting stumps for seating, etc., just to help us be outside. To Gordini for an amazing donation of mittens that they put in the mail today. And just to the Academy community at large for their support and trust and communication. I feel like our relationships have gotten stronger since March because everyone's been so willing to communicate with us. So I really appreciate it. It's felt like there's a lot of light and positivity throughout the pandemic that I'm really appreciative of.
Thank you, Kelly. Mark.
Thank you. Yeah, the support's been amazing. And it's tough to try to recognize everybody because inevitably you forget someone. So try to take some broad strokes here as well. But first and foremost, just thank the staff, our families, our leadership council, our PTO for just the incredible investment they've put into this school year and every school year, really. We had a Kids in Coats program this year, and with a donation from the United Way, which we were able to outfit lots of coats for children in our family and families. We also did a community coat share where we purchased winter boots, scarves, mittens, gloves, snow pants, and heavy sweatshirts. And that was all through donations. We had local resale businesses, Cream of the Crop, Love It Twice, and Whippersnappers, who made great donations, as well as parents, staff, and neighbors. We've had hundreds and upon hundreds of donations of handmade masks from many community members, staff, and families. Food Connects, Sheila Humphreys and the Thompson Trust. We were able to acquire a grant to purchase outdoor gear for
Mark, afraid we lost you there, Mark.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can now, yes.
Oh, sorry.
Outdoor gear, I think, was the last.
Be getting up over 10 minutes.
Okay, so we were able to provide outdoor gear for about 100 students through Food Connects and Sheila Humphreys, her work with us. We did a staff luncheon early in the year as a pick-me-up for the staff, which was sponsored by the Leadership Council, and Hazel Restaurant made 100% donation of all the food for that luncheon. Leadership Council and PTO supplied extra treats as well for that day. The Vermont Food Bank for years has been delivering food for families on a monthly basis, and that's been more important this year than any other. Veggie Van Go, obviously we all benefit, this community benefits from Veggie Van Go. This holiday season, Tracy Benet Perrin created a Snowflake holiday gift program where we've been able to purchase and deliver gifts to 72 different households in our school community. And that was through many donations from individuals from our staff, our families, community members, retired staff. Deb Schiller, who's here tonight, also created a holiday store. We've been doing this for a handful of years now, where we receive donations where children in our school community can actually take gifts, wrap them, and bring them home to family members. So basically, we've been able to do that for most of our school community. And again, that's the PTO, the staff and retired staff with donations. Last spring, our tulip trot didn't get canceled. We kind of reinvented it, but we weren't able to have our tulip trot. But we still benefited from, amazing donations from our community. So just wanted to highlight that. And everyone's books gave our families a 10% discount on the book, The Hate You Give, which is, we just did a book talk on that last night, actually, that Shannon Kelly helped organize. And for that book talk, our Leadership Council donated gift cards as door prizes, just try to increase participation. And Tito's Tacos also donated for last night's book talk on The Hate You Give. And I'm sure I'm missing others, but overall the community support's been pretty amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. And I think you forgot to mention all the positive emails that Deb Schiller sends out, reminding people to be uplifting and all those items. I see them occasionally, and they are a frequent highlight of my day. John Gagnon.
Thanks, Andy.
Hi, everyone. So I'll, at the risk of forgetting someone, so I apologize right up front. I'm going to miss somebody. I just know it. So I want to first thank the kids for showing up every day, either remote or in person, and for coming to school and being so resilient and positive. You make my day, you make all of your teachers' days. So big shout out to the kids and to their families for just putting one foot in front of the other with a smile on their face and keeping going through all of this. I want to thank our Leadership Advisory Council. As many of you may know, this fall we did a community fundraiser that garnered a tremendous amount of money for our outdoor learning program. And through that fundraiser, through donations of both labor and money, we have put up numerous outdoor structures, pavilions, created learning spaces. And the Leadership Advisory Council is really the place where it began. And at the risk of, again, forgetting people, there are a few people that are notable. I want a big shout out to Maggie Foley and to Kitsy LaRock and to Beth Bristol for getting the fundraiser up and going. I want to shout out to Peter Welch and Jared Bristol for getting the DAD crew up and running. And they have been soldiering on since August through last weekend, doing volunteer labor, everything from putting up shelters to taking down trees. These guys are the best. And I want to thank the Henderson Foundation for a very generous gift that enables us to do some really top quality PD around outdoor learning and best practices in nature-based learning. Some businesses that really stepped up in Guilford, Walker and Company Roofing, MT3 Unlimited, LaRock and Sons Construction, and Ridgeline Excavation. These guys showed up, suited up, and they didn't get paid. They put in a lot of sweat equity. So thank you very much. I want to thank all of the donations from staff and from families and from kids who have made masks. Lots and lots of masks. Connor Floyd from Food Connect and Sarah Rosso, our farm to school coordinator, for shepherding some grants and getting some needed equipment for our farm to school program. Thank you guys very, very much. And lastly, to the local families and to our 6th grade who are currently doing a fundraiser to help families in need during the holiday season. So big hearts out in Guilford. I know I'm missing some folks, but a big thank you.
Thank you, John. I think you had a donation from Darn Tough Socks as well, if I recall.
Yes.
So Vermont company Darn Tough donated socks to Guilford so kids could have dry feet upon coming from inside.
Yep.
Mary Kaufman.
Thanks. I won't forget anybody. No, I'm just kidding. I might, but it's not on purpose, that's for sure. So first of all, like everyone else, I have to thank the staff at Oak Grove and the community at large. Everybody's been patient and willing to help and creative and resilient. And I appreciate learning from everybody and seeing how everybody's adapting and trying new things and just working really hard. It's very much appreciated. I have to thank Kim Rose, Greg Frost, and Jeff Christmas, who were with me basically since March when we started childcare and worked all the way through the summer with me to make sure that we were prepared and ready to open at the start of the school year. They worked basically all summer, and I wouldn't be where I am today without them. So thank you to them specifically. Tara Gordon is our garden coordinator, and she also spent a lot of time working with us over the summer to help kind of beautify our outdoor spaces and make them usable for everybody, along with Tara Davis, who is our PTO chair and a parent in our community. She has been super helpful in getting some grants and some money and some donations. She got us several trees that we could use for outdoor learning spaces. And she's very creative and looking for things, and she always seems to find what we need. So definitely a shout out to both of them. Tracy Bartlett is in a new role at Oak Grove School, and she has been working really hard to support families. And through that work, she has received some donations from around the community. We had the Brattleboro Senior Center knit some hats and mittens for our kids so that if they needed something to go outside, if they forgot something at home, it would be available at school. Northeast Mountain Footwear donated several pairs of boots. That was a huge surprise, and they were just thankful that they could help. Love It Twice also provided us with some winter clothing for students, and Louis Garneau USA donated some winter hats. She's also been able to rely on Veggie Van Go frequently to get food to our families who don't have transportation to get there themselves, along with the Farmers to Families. And I know she sent out a really great email, and just a thank you to Allie West for helping with that as well. We got a donation of 10 Thanksgiving baskets from Rivertown Church. They help us out every year so that families can have a nice Thanksgiving meal. And they were there to support us again this year. We did a staff kind of snowy owl project similar to what was happening at Green Street, and all of our snowy owls got chosen by staff members. We had plans to reach out to members of the community for that, but our staff stepped up and they just wanted to show their love and appreciation for our students and their families. So we really appreciate that as well. Sheila Humphreys, again, through the Thompson Trust, we've been able to secure some funds for some extra professional development with Beak, and also some outdoor gear. We'll start with our youngest kiddos and hopefully get everybody suited up eventually in some rain gear. As everybody else has had, we've had mask makers from all around the community, so we appreciate those. I got to wear a really cool cow one the other day that I pulled out of the bag. That was fun. I should also mention Kat Goodell, Arlene Scott, our health department liaison and our COVID coordinator. They have been really helpful, but also Julia Duke and Christine Kierstead, who were our COVID coordinators over the summer, really keeping us on task with our health and safety guidelines. Gordini donated 50 pairs of mittens and gloves for our kiddos in the cold weather. MT3 donated a lot of stuff for our outdoor spaces, topsoil, hydroseed, and a stump removal for a tree that we had to remove. They also helped reseed the back area, our back playground area. And just similar to Guilford. They came, but they didn't get paid. And that was really awesome that they donated their time and their materials. And it was hot this summer. Debbie Bashford is a grandparent, and she brought us a bunch of boots and snow pants and jackets for outdoor time. The folks at Feed the Thousands have been working with us as usual, and the staff at Groundworks has been incredibly helpful in securing food for families. And we had an anonymous donor show up one day with a whole bunch of boots, jackets, gloves, hats, everything we would need for outside. So the community at large has really stepped up, and I am sorry if I forgot anyone, but we do appreciate everything that everybody has done. So thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Julianne.
Thank you. So you can hear in everybody's words that how much interconnectedness there is in the community. People who've been working across the district, like Allie and Food Connects and Beak, you know, the Henderson Foundation grant. John and I are both benefiting from that. Just listening to people, it's really wonderful how we all are benefiting from some of these collective resources and collective efforts. I wrote a letter to my staff last week just to note that not a week goes by that a student or parent doesn't come to me to tell me how much they love school. I had, you know, a student will just spontaneously tell me, you know, in the hallway, I'm so happy, I love being here. I had a remote student, fully remote student at a lunch last week, just talked to me about how much she loved the new teacher she had met as a result of her fully remote experience, and you know, talk to me about all the exciting things they're doing. And so I think it will take us time to even appreciate, maybe years for us to really appreciate and grasp the amount of creativity and resourcefulness and strength and courage that has gone into making this experience work. And when I get exhausted and I just look around and it lifts me up. And so I just want to say that to the staff, to our students, to our families. It has been such a collaborative effort, but that doesn't even capture it. Like, that's so inadequate of a word to say. It's really sometimes truly taken my breath away. Just a few specific thank yous I'd like to make. The year started with us unveiling a multi-use trail in our forest. That was talked about at our leadership council last year, and then a group of parents actually, Lance Snieper, one parent, got a professional designer in to come and create the trail and fundraised for that, along with other parents. And then a group of parents met over the summer and built the trail by hand, like dug out the trail, met a couple times a week. And so that trail is used every single day at Dummerston School. All the students go out on that trail. There are picnic tables up there, there are fire pits up there. We're going to have a solstice celebration up there on Friday. The forest classrooms are within that area. It has been such an incredible gift. Every single day we see it being used. The students are labeling trees and leaving notes for each other out there and decorating solstice trees, and it's really amazing. We had a beautiful fall with the tent that the Dummerston Congregational Church donated. They donated their apple pie festival tent, and it was such a treat for students. We were actually really worried about when it came down and letting the pre-K students know it was coming down, because they love to go under there to dance and be in their circle. And we had all of our students pre-K to 8 using that in some capacity. Walker Farm and Scott Farm have donated to us. We had a big pumpkin walk out on the woods. Walker Farm made sure every student had a pumpkin. Scott Farm donated cider and donuts for us that day. Every day, you know, there have been so many days I walk in and waiting for me out on the bench is just a bag of masks anonymously donated, or someone drives up and in the parking lot hands me a big package of masks. And that has been amazing. Dummerston Cares has adopted some families for the holidays in order to provide holiday meals and meals over vacation. We have people donating holiday gifts for families. Our PTCO did a winter clothing drive so that we could make sure that all of our students have adequate clothing because we're spending so much time outside. And we also had funds for the United Way for that. We've been able to work with Food Connects. Sheila Humphreys, Molly Stoner helped out in the garden over the summer, Keith Marshall, also that this fall students were able to be out there engaged in the garden when they all came back together. And just again, I want to just thank the community, the Leadership Council of Dummerston School, the leadership team of the district, the staff, everybody. Dummerston School students are, at school in a hybrid learning environment. They're also fully remote, and there are teachers whose home base is Oak Grove and Green Street who've taken in Dummerston School students like they're absolutely like they're their own. The Dummerston School students feel so much a part of those communities, whether they're in school or they're fully remote. And I just want to thank everybody who's been a part of that. Thank you.
Thanks, Julianne. We've had a lot of sharing. I'm not sure if we have anyone else that wants to share tonight. I may have to step away to make a certain phone call about tomorrow. I see Mr. Perrin. Steve, I see you raising your hand there, though.
Sure. I'd like to just share a couple of things, and I do want to echo what people have said, and I'm not going to repeat except to say that Allie West is incredible. She is a gift to this district, and her work at the high school and making sure kids are fed and organizing that. I am in awe of everything she does. And I don't even know if she's here, but Allie, if you're here, thank you so much because you are keeping our kids fed. Thank you. I want to thank our students. There's a lot of trepidation how teenagers would act, and would they disregard mask protocols, and would they try to rebel and do what people think teenagers do. I was pretty confident, and they've proven me right. Our teenagers are great. They are socially distancing. Do they forget sometimes and group together? Sure they do. But when we remind them, they don't get mad. They just say, yep, sorry, my bad. They are masking. They're reminding other people about masks. Our class councils are organizing an ugly mask, ugly sweater contest. And we're trying everything we can do. And student council is a big part of that. Really trying hard to create community in this remote world, this remote hybrid world. So I do want to thank our students first and foremost. I want to thank the parents. There's a group of parents that are putting handwritten notes in teachers' mailboxes. They're delivering them here, and they're handwritten thank you notes, and the teachers are thrilled to get those. And they just mean so much to the teachers to know that somebody's acknowledging them, along with the emails that we get from parents that are going to teachers, just thanking them for everything they're doing in this tough time. So thank you, parents, and thank you for forgiving me of my typos in my weekly missives to you. Sam's did a great donation. They donated several boxes of Keen masks to us. And you probably know Keen sandals. It's those really nice, high quality sandals. The masks are just as awesome. And they're very popular and they're great. Senior Zach Thomas did an Eagle Scout project here. And Zach actually worked with our facilities people to make shielding for kids and shielding for the nurse's office, as well as several hundred masks that are all purple and white. And so thank you to Zach. And his work along the same lines, a group of our retired teachers have been dropping off masks on a regular basis, along with other folks in the community. And Burton Snowboard Company actually donated some PPE to us, which was kind of nice to see. I wish it was snowboards, but we'll take PPE as well. So that was kind of nice. Last week, Connor with Everyone Eats, they came here on 2 days and brought 220 meals each day for our teachers as they left. And so as our teachers left school on Tuesday and Friday, they could line up and they could get the same Everyone Eats program that's working downtown. They actually came up here and did it for the high school teachers and the Career Center and middle school teachers. that was a wonderful, wonderful gesture, and our teachers really appreciated that. Our counselors have gone above and beyond, like counselors all over the district. They are so in touch with the needs of our kids and making sure that our kids get their basic needs met. And so our counseling department and our staff have put together about 20, 25 different Thanksgiving dinners, everything in those dinners included. And just today, they organized a winter clothing drive, and we brought that down to thrift store, and we got some gift cards to give out to families as well, so they could go and shop there to get the clothes as well. So everybody here has just done such a great job. And I also would be remiss if I did not mention Frank's best friend, Robert Clark, who has done an incredible job district-wide, helping us make sure the air we breathe is good and that everything is balanced. I'm even going to forgive him for his forgetting to put the thermostat back on in the admin hallway last week, but we warmed up after I told him. So thank you to everybody, and I also want to thank my admin colleagues. You guys keep me laughing, and thank you for everything you do.
Thank you, Steve. If anyone else that would like to share, I don't see, I'm looking at the hands in the chat.
Yep. There's Mary.
Oh, Mary Ross.
Permission to share from Vernon. Thanks. I'd like to thank Vernon. I'm going to say some of the same things my colleagues have said, so I'll try to be quick, but definitely like to thank the Vernon School students and staff. They've worked above and beyond the bounds of what I ever dreamed was possible, including our dedicated maintenance staff, Dennis Atwater, Peter Bordeaux, Greg Smith, and Matthew Allison. Our sixth grade leaders working with Shannon Miner and Jamie Card, currently collecting large donations of food for Project Feed the Thousands. I'd like to thank Vernon families that support the learning of their children at home in this really tough time. Christine Kierstead was mentioned. She's our dedicated school nurse, just tireless efforts in coordination with Kat Goodell and the Vermont Department of Health, and our coordinator, Arlene Scott. I'd like to echo what Steve said. Allie, thank you and your staff for feeding us. To the Vernon School Board and Vernon Town and Recreation Department for their support and collaboration and trust in us at the school. We also share our garden coordinator, Tara Gordon, who I'm working with teachers and families to provide opportunities for kids to learn in our beautiful school garden that's literally growing, not right now probably, but this summer will be. To Sheila Humphreys, who also, drove by herself all the way down to Vernon to hand deliver meals from Everyone Eats for our staff to enjoy. So they had to take a break from cooking for a night. That was really helpful. To Rise Vermont for their continued collaboration and grant writing from staff members, Leanne Hatzel and Christine Kierstead, which provided additional opportunities for students and staff through funding from Rise Vermont. To Ken Bloom, Vernon dad, who brought a delicious catered lasagna lunch from the Blooming Italian, which is his catering business for our Vernon staff. To just countless community and staff donors of beautiful handmade masks, which has been mentioned, funding for winter clothing, grocery store gift cards, and extensive amounts of holiday gifts. Anonymous donors, 4-H, the Iron Militia, a lot of generous donations for families this time of year. And to Chris Nesbitt, Jamie Card, and Linda Shippey for coordinating the wrapping and distribution of these gifts. And like Steve, I'd like to thank my administrative colleagues, especially Deb Carday and Shelley Wilson, our elementary principal group, and all of my administrative colleagues. As my brother from the South, John Gagnon, put it, it's been a challenging year, and you folks have helped me put one foot in front of the other in this job. So thanks for the time to speak.
Thank you, Mary. Do anyone else that would like to share anything? I know we've taken a lot of this is so important that I'm hearing that I wanted you to share. What I found, and I'll wrap up my comments, is that I had the opportunity to listen to one of my favorite podcasts, which is Hidden Brain by Shankar Vedanta. It's an NPR podcast. And the episode that was most recently queued up was about the Stoics, who were a group of philosophers, and essentially they tried to make the most out of life in the most challenging of conditions, and not letting the challenging conditions is more get them down and really embracing everything. I think it was really important tonight that we got to get, hear a sense of how impactful the community has been on the operation of schools, how much the community has come together to support our students. And it's absolutely amazing. And it's such a privilege to be here and to hear all of that. Keith, you want the last word on people that have helped out? I see your hand up. Oh, I see.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I've been in and out of the meeting this evening. Tonight was a Choose Snow presentation, if folks have ever been part of that. And I was sitting through 2 meetings, but a really powerful message on alcohol and drug abuse through that program. And the Deerfield Valley partnership sets that up. So we got to hear about the story of Kathy and Chris Sullivan. Chris was a former Patriots player, and a really powerful story about drug and alcohol abuse. And just finished that up with my daughter. BAM's has been an amazing place to work during this pandemic. And I would hate to miss people, but a lot of the folks that have been recognized already, as far as kind of nurses, our custodians were amazing during this transition. I missed all the people that Mr. Perrin would have thanked, but our custodian has just been amazing working through this. Our nurses, Linda Rinder, Susan Mello, Darcy Whitworth, Rebecca Olmstead, amazing work with our staff and with our families. Our front office staff, Jen Miner, Sue Boss, Don Petrovsky. Don's been doing all the attendance work during this. Our counselors, Paula Starkweather and Tracy Jacobs, my assistant principal, Tom Doughton. And working with the teachers has been really powerful. They're just so focused on making the school a great place to be. And then I'll just finish by thanking the kids at BAMS and the parents. It's been a tough year, but the kids have been amazing and worked really hard through really challenging situations. So sure I missed somebody, but thanks everyone who's listening.
Thank you, Keith. I want to thank our admin team for pulling that all together. I asked them gave them late notice to pull together those really comprehensive lists, and it's astounding. So thank you for all that information. I know I tremendously appreciated that, and I'm sure everyone else did as well. Dave, that about wraps up the principal side of the administrator side of things for me. Do we want to move on?
A couple of comments or observations. One that sort of builds on what Keith and Steve said about everybody said about the students, but they particularly talked about their support in the process. And this has been as challenging as this has been, it's an opportunity for kids to really get a life-based experience with being responsible to their community, to taking care of each other and having to think about each other. And it's an incredible opportunity. And I hope that we're able to build on that, because we don't as often as it might be nice, remind kids of those responsibilities. But this is a real life and death situation, and sounds like they're really rising to the occasion, which is great for all of us to hear. The other thing is that this video, for all of you overworked people, this video goes up in a couple of days, and they have a contents listing at the bottom, and you'll find around 7 o'clock, about an hour in, when the administrative reports part started, you'll be able to go in and listen to what you said, just in case you wanted to make a list or highlight some of particularly the local businesses that have been engaged, who could really use a little free advertising, maybe through a letter of thanks to the Commons, or the Reformer on Mondays regularly publishes a thank you section of thank you letters to get the information out. It's wonderful that the 56 people here in this meeting are hearing this information, but I think the scope of the engagement of the community is it's fantastic, and it would be really great to get that out more broadly. And I have a feeling that Michelle and Robin, both their wheels are probably churning right now to try and figure out how to put a system in for every time somebody comes and does something good to the schools, the Communications Council hears about it, and then they make sure that it gets out to the various social media and other opportunities for advertising the support that we're getting from the community. So just encourage people, if you have a few extra minutes over the holidays, to maybe pick out some of the most salient, or maybe the most struggling businesses or organizations that are helping you, and give them a little shout out in the paper or in the comments of the Reformer.
Great. So I think that about sums up the superintendent's report. Frank, do you want to take? I have to deal with a certain phone call right now, David.
Yeah. Okay. I'm hoping when you come back, we'll have time to give us an update on the planning for the second semester. I don't think we're going to meet again until it starts, and I think most board members probably have not have a lot of information about some of the changes that are in the works.
Oh, I can share briefly with what we're working on right now. So we have as I share, we've put a commitment survey out to families. That's really the numbers involved in students selecting remote or in-person learning really drives everything. That will allow us, we anticipate many things will stay the same. There are some subtle changes. Our schools right now are tracking down the final people that haven't finalized their commitment surveys so that we can get a hard look at the numbers. We have worked with I know all the elementary schools. I know have looked at a list of areas that they've sought staff feedback on in terms of areas that the staff see as questions and items that pop up that they would want to collect feedback on. We've worked with the association and our administrators to come up with a consolidated timeline for information to go out and come back to people. It looks like and we're still finalizing a couple of different dates, but as I said before, the biggest piece in all of this is that commitment from parents so that we can lock in on who will be coming into the buildings and who will be remaining remote or going to remote learning. And again, all these decisions and determinations are made with the health guidance and where we are, whatever the health statutes and status is at that time. And so I hosted our administrators gathered feedback in the last week or so from faculty around the 4 days at K through 8, and gathering additional information around what they see as kind of more the granular details that we would call it, that things that we might miss in some of our thoughts and our conversations. And so those conversations have been taking place. I held a meeting with our elementary teachers on Monday night. I'm trying to think, given what day we are right now, because it was 6 or 7 hours of Zoom each day this week thus far. We held a listening session with our elementary teachers and to hear what their sense was of how things were going, so that we can inform our planning with that information as well.
Great, thank you. We have a question from Hannah Neff.
Thank you, David. I just wanted to share one observation that I've made recently with the Green Street announcing that they're going remote until school returns. I think that because I'm pretty tuned into social media and chatting with other families, I understand that there's a lot of things that need to be kept for privacy. But I think there's some misunderstanding. There might be a misunderstanding about why Green Street is going remote early. I think it's easy for parents to make assumptions that there is spread within schools. And unfortunately, I think parents may have made decisions about spring term based on that assumption. And I think there are a lot of us that are really clear that that's not where the spread is happening. But I think that especially if the school is going to go remote unexpectedly, there may be need to be some reassurance to parents about why that decision was made or not made.
Thank you, Hannah. So Andy, you were about to take us to the fiscal report, I think?
Yep. I'm gonna go black on my camera for a few moments.
It's not snowing yet. You don't have to make the call yet.
I don't sing. I will say I do not sing on the robocalls. I'm not
Well,
that.
I can send you the link to that snow song from White Christmas if you want. Okay, turn it over to Frank.
Okay, very good. And David, have you enabled sharing yet?
Oh, I have not yet. Sorry. There you go.
Okay, thank you. I think the way Andy had this planned was I was going to give a relatively brief overview of the budget proposal. This is the third budget of the Windham Southeast School District. And then I think we had a couple of principals that were going to give us sort of an overview of some of the assumptions in the process to get to a draft plan. So I'll be relatively brief, but happy to answer questions, knowing that we'll get into a fair amount more detail in the next few board meetings coming up. So I had sent you this summary of the budget proposal earlier this afternoon, and I've sent you the detail of all of this yesterday, and these resources are on the website as well. So here's our summary on a single page document of the proposed Windham Southeast School District for fiscal year 22. And we also have the year ending this past June here, the actual 48,809,000 with the knowing that was an interrupted year. And then we have the current year that was approved this past June, 51,171,000. So that's current operating budget. And here's our proposed budget, 52,103,000, up 1.8%. And there's been a lot of thought put into this over several months with our stellar administrative team and engaging our teachers and teacher leaders and various coordinators. So I think this is a pretty well thought out draft, but we know it is a draft, and it's the beginning of the process. I'll mention briefly that the revenue assumptions will be revisited. We need the equalized student data from the Agency of Ed to start to refine that. So you see, I haven't made any changes other than to imply that it's likely we're going to want to increase the amount that we use of reserves. Couple of highlights on the spending plan. So as I said, 1.8%. We worked hard at getting to what we thought was a fiscally responsible budget in this climate that we're in. Instruction, relatively level funded. Career Center is down, as you see. We can get into more of the details on that, but it's really a reflection of one of the areas that we've seen the most decline in enrollment. We were averaging around 115 student FTEs, and unfortunately we're down to around 94. So this is the administrator's recommendation with the faculty and the superintendent on aligning programming with our enrollment. The athletics and co-curricular, actually, I'm realizing that we've got some benefits to distribute, and you can see these two numbers are pretty similar in opposite directions. And when I have a chance to look at some of the details on that, I think we're going to see both of these kind of level funded. The support services is up more than most of these line items. You can see, some things are down, some things are up. That's what gets us to an average of a 1.8% change. But support services for instruction is an area that has been of a good deal of interest, of course, because of the pandemic and the challenges ahead. So this is investments in additional tech support for integrating technology in instruction. That's one of the larger areas. Student support in terms of instructional support. This also includes professional development, the 1% area of the budget. It includes library media services as well. You see these other areas are relatively level funded or in line with primarily the negotiated agreement. And again, you see a fairly significant increase here in the operations of maintenance and plant. This represents bringing back our commitment to funding the capital plan long-term, so we can talk more about that. But there's of that 494,000, over 400,000 of that is just specifically contributions to the capital plan, of which we have, I've shared that with you. It's on the website as well. We can look at that briefly. And unfortunately, our debt services continues to decline as we approach the 2024 end of the BUHS bond. So that's a declining interest rate as planned in the amortization schedule. So there's a relatively quick overview of the spending plan. As I say, we worked really hard to get this to what we thought was fiscally responsible, especially in light of what you had seen earlier with the tax commissioner's forecast on the yield. We know that the legislature, based on the tax commissioner's report, is starting us off at a higher level if no changes are made. It sounds like some of the headline news is optimistic that we might see some additional support from the U.S. Congress that might help us. The chart here is, if you looked at your annual report, you'd see the same chart on on page 10. And this is a similar distribution of our resources. The big chunk here is direct instruction, and then this other second largest chunk of resources is primarily special education. So we put those two together, and that's well over 60% of the resources are going toward instruction between regular ed and special education, which is also in line with what we see across the state. A couple of other highlights. So the financial statements, I'm giving you the 2-page summary. I had also given you an 11-page summary. I can talk to you, share that with you briefly. And then there's a 145-page detail report that's also available on the website, and I've sent it to you. But this pulls out a few statistics, and I'm sure there will be questions that I can address further. But here's a couple of highlights. I mentioned the total change. Here's some of the larger cost drivers in this budget. So with this 931,000 increase, the negotiated agreements with our certified teachers and our classified paraeducator unions are very much in line with the what we're seeing in prevailing wages around the state. So it represents about 3% increase, and that is a result of a negotiated agreement that actually ends at the end of the fiscal year 22. So something we've got to have on our radar not too long to renew. I mentioned the capital improvement contribution. So when we look at 1.8 and 900 something thousand, those two right there pretty much explain most of the increase. The special education increase is in there. This was much lower than it was last year. Last year, this was over $500,000, but fortunately, we're seeing that rate of spending stabilizing. And here we are with our health insurance impact. This is actually a little bit lower than it would have been if we did not apply part of the reserve that we've accumulated from the HRA, the unused HRA. So again, last year, this was a much bigger number, but we've applied a reserve against the cost. So that's been somewhat mitigated. So there's some of the increases. Obviously, you can see that's more than 900,000. Yes, there were some reductions. Here's one of the larger reductions. Costs paid for our regular ed students to outside private providers. So we're looking at programs internally. You'll see and you'll hear from some of our other administrators the investments that are being made in student support services to help our kids, or all of our kids, be successful in our buildings. It was nice to see through a bid process a reduction in workers' comp, and it's also a reflection of lower claims in workers' comp. So this is an insurance premium reduction. So we're pleased to see that. And then I mentioned you saw this number, interest expense on the bond. So with all of those increases, they're offset by these decreases, and overall, there's lots of pluses and minuses. They net in this proposal to 931,000. A final statistic here, our enrollment. You've probably heard our enrollment and across the state has been lower than current year in terms of the forecast, and we know it's largely associated with the effects of the pandemic. I've got a note here comparing it to the year last November this time, and you can see it's quite a bit lower, but most of that decrease, 2355 versus 2509, is reflected in the pre-K kids that are in the private programs. So it's not a direct effect on our operations currently, but it's obviously something we're concerned about, and we hope that participation returns to normal levels after this pandemic. I mentioned the capital plan, 6.3 million if we add up the 5 years. Over the next, that would be 22, 23, 24, and fiscal year 25. So that plan is in a similar format that we've seen in the past, and as I say, I've sent that to you. So I'll be really brief on this next set of documents, and then I think I'd like to turn it over to a couple of our principals, because David, my understanding is you really didn't want to spend a great deal of time on this segment, right?
Yeah, we have the January 4th meeting is pretty much only about budget, so we can go into really great detail. I would want to ask you for one thing, Frank, for comparison purposes, could you also email the FY20 and FY21 capital plans to board members? So I don't think they're ever done on a chart like this where you see the actual from 1 year and the proposed for the 2 or 3 year transition, but just so people can see what the changes are without having to go dig out some old annual reports.
Actually, I have that. It is included, David.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
oh, it is. Okay, great.
And here it is, just so you see it.
That's fine. Good. Just let that. Yeah. So just skip right over that then. We'll look at it ourselves. Thank you.
There it is. Yeah. And I was going to mention, David, just this is the summary, and that's the 6.3 million I just mentioned. But folks can look at each site. Here's the high school site for 18, 19, 20. Those are actuals. and the 21 is our current proposal. And you can review each site, and see what is contemplated this year, next year, all the way through 2025, and what was actually completed in the prior years.
Great. And we have that now in our emails?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So the other fairly brief review, this is the part where for those of you that were able to retain some of our little orientation on how to read financial reports based on the State of Vermont Agency of Ed's chart of accounts. This is where, if you go back to any of those documents, I have given you sort of those indexes that the state published. This is where you can see, program 11 is regular education, and then we've merged all the grade levels. That's what this digit number is, and see it's in this sequence up here. That's grade level, and then the function is direct instruction, support services, maintenance, and so on. And then the object we haven't put here. This is how we get from 11 pages instead of 147 pages. But this report is a nice summary by school. So, and it's the bold here, just for your future reference, these bold lines mean that you're changing the view of a program. So it starts with a regular instruction, and then here's your total regular instruction. Then you go to program 12, which is academic summer school. Then you go to program 14, which is after school programs. And then you go to program 15, that's food service. And then program 92 is your co-curricular activities. You get a total for the school. You'll have this format for every site. So there you go for academy, slightly lower budget. The big change for academy is right up here. We already mentioned the reduction in outside placement costs. Overall, when you go through, there's the high school. You'll see how the format repeats. It's instruction, supportive services by the various programs. And then when you get to the last page, you will see the total that we just started with on the summary, 52,103,000 with the 931 increase of the 1.8. So just a way to help you read through that document. And then our here, I'm not going to go through this one now, but you have this one, and then this is the 147-page report that is the same information at the most detail level, and it is also organized up here. You see location, grade level, program, function, and then object. That's what all of these codes mean, and we have a reasonable amount of narrative in there. As much as the accounting system allows us to squeeze in for titles, we've tried to help you navigate the report. The last thing I'll mention is we do have the page references over here. So on the summary, the 11-page summary by school site, we have what page number out of the 147 document you can find. So you hopefully it's a way to navigate as you absorb the information. So I think that's all I thought you would want to see initially. And I think we have a principal or two or three that we're going to just give you some brief comments on process.
Okay, and I also want to just go over the minutes from the SU meeting to let this board know what's in the SU budget, so that the SU is going to be voting on it on Monday. So if there are any questions, we do need a little time for that.
Sure, and I can help you with an overview. Yeah.
Great, thanks.
Steve, were you on were you one of our presenters tonight?
Sure, I can be. Yeah. So thank you, everybody. And I want to take you through kind of the process of how we look at the budget and how we assemble a budget, and kind of fill the board in on what our priorities are as we look ahead to next year. So we began our budget planning process in early October, and that process involved working with department heads, working with teachers to kind of determine what individual department needs are. We're lucky that right now we are pretty stable in terms of our curricula. You know, we've recently been through major renovations to our math offerings, our social studies offerings, as well as our science offerings. And so right now we're ironing out those curricula rather than looking to develop new ones, and you know, looking for ways to keep them relevant, but certainly not going to do whole cloth changes for the next few years in those areas. As part of that planning process, we look at enrollment, we look at potential sending schools, we look at private schools as well as our local public schools. And, you know, as Frank said, the numbers are down slightly, but it does look as though we're relatively stable. You know, we're not seeing a sharp precipitous decline. And so we're not seeing anything that really makes us too alarmed. We are concerned, obviously, that, you know, last spring and this year, remote learning has had an impact on our student success rate. And so we're kind of strategizing about how we're going to address that as well. The other thing we do is we look at, besides department needs, we also look at our class sizes. We very carefully look at average class sizes within departments. We also look at class sizes for our introductory level, our 9th grade classes, to make sure that we're not having those creep up too much, so we can continue to offer support for students as they need it. And in general, those are pretty decent. You know, I'll be honest that this year, given the changes that we've had to do, where we have some of our teachers teaching 9th and 10th grade and other ones teaching 11th and 12th, that the schedule and class sizes are, you know, they're about the same as last year, but I wouldn't put a lot of faith that they're representing legitimate trends. You know, some courses that we didn't offer this year due to COVID, you know, such as our Dimensions of Social Change, because that's a course that requires a lot of field trips and a lot of travel to local elementary schools, which we obviously can't do. So we'll expect to see those courses rebound next year as well. In terms of staffing needs and what we're looking to do for next year, you know, we're looking to reimagine our Dean of Students position that we did not fill this year. We're looking to reimagine that as a student engagement coordinator. That student engagement position will be a teaching position. It will not be an administrative position. It'll be a licensed teacher. And what we're looking for in that position is somebody who can do some tier 1 discipline, but really work with students who are chronically unable to attend school or to meet school expectations. We're looking for that person to develop learning and graduation plans for identified students, working with families. We'd like them to be somebody to help build those relationships with local families who struggle accessing local community agencies, to kind of help them navigate those waters. We had this position a few years ago part-time, and Bill Jan, who was a retired counselor, he filled the position, and he's really done a good job. You know, he hasn't done it for several years, but the work he did kind of laid the groundwork for what we want this position to look like. And so, you know, we're really looking for a person who can reach out not just to our disenfranchised students, but to our disenfranchised families, and really create connections with those families so we can get those students back in and meet with some success in high school. And, you know, we're pretty confident that position is going to be pretty busy, but also they're going to be working really hard and making connections with kids and with teachers and with local agencies. The other thing we're looking to do is to reallocate some funds from paraprofessionals to hire an instructional coach for teachers. We're not sure if it's going to be 7-12 yet or 9-12. That instructional coach, we're looking for that in direct response to Act 173. We realize that we have a need for our teachers to develop their skill set in providing tier 1 interventions for kids, and also working to work with a wider range of kids as we begin to move more students into mainstream classes. And we're really working hard to find a person in that position who will be able to give teachers, you know, kind of empower the teachers. It's really not, it's the teach a man to fish model. You know, we want to give teachers the skill sets they need so they can move ahead and they can actually implement accommodations and modifications as appropriate. The other thing we're, you know, really acutely aware of is that we're probably going to have to keep a remote presence in some form next year. While many of us don't enjoy remote learning, we do have a population of students who do well with it and they thrive. And so we're really looking at ways, what courses would we need to keep and what grade levels would we keep. That's a challenge because we're certainly not going to have enough students to offer, 3 sections of Algebra 2 remotely. So we're going to have to work creatively with our departments to figure out what does that model look like if we're going to offer, for example, a remote section of math every semester. What math is that, or is it in fact several math classes within one remote environment? And we're still looking at that and developing a model. The other thing we're really, aware of is that our incoming 9th graders next year, and this is a sobering thought, our incoming 9th graders next year will not have had a quote normal school year since 6th grade. So since elementary school, they have not had what we would call a normal school year. And to that end, we realized that those incoming 9th graders may need more support than a typical 9th grade class. And so one of the models we're exploring, is do we want to create 9th grade teams? And do we want to use a team approach for 9th grade to kind of help that transition? And so we can have more immediate support for kids and more direct communication between teachers. It would be really helpful if a student had the same English, science, social studies, and math teacher, because then they could actually talk about that student. In our current model, a student may have, they may have Aaron Hillo for 9th grade math, and they may have, Bruce Holloway for 9th grade science, and there may not be that combination that exists. So we're trying to create ways that we can put structures in place where teachers can communicate about teams of kids and individual kids. Along with that, we also realize that our current 9th graders have entered high school in a very strange way. 1 day a week. To be honest, a lot of the kids, we know them by their masks rather than by their faces. And so we're going to have to work hard next year to get to know what will be our 10th graders and kind of make sure that we can get to meet them. So as we're thinking about staffing and allocation of where we're going to use our FTEs, we're kind of keeping those ideas in mind as well. And finally, facilities, I mentioned it earlier, we have Robert Clerk, who's done a fantastic job. We are looking at that capital plan pretty closely. The Title IX study group that Chris Sawyer did and the board reviewed kind of highlights that we will need at some point to look at some of our athletic facilities, specifically our locker rooms, to see how we make those Title IX compliant and how we make those compliant for students who may not identify strictly as a male or female gender. So we're working hard to develop those strategies as well. And Robert and Frank and I have had a preliminary conversation about that, but that's certainly something that we're thinking about. And of course, we always regard the high school as a new school, but with the bond retiring, we also know that our new school is not really a new school anymore. But we've done a phenomenal job of keeping it up, and we're going to continue to do that. So that's kind of a summary of where we are at the high school and kind of the mindset we've used approaching the budget. I'd love to take some questions or pass it off to Kelly. Either way.
Looks like it's, well, I see Jody and Tim have their hands up. I'm not sure if they're related to, well, let's find out. Tim?
Hi, thanks. Good report, Steve. Thank you. I don't know if you saw the Reformer article this morning, but there's an article by 3 superintendents from LA, Chicago, and New York asking for a Marshall Plan for our schools. So one part of the article that struck me very nicely is they call for funding for 4 areas. The 4th area was funding for in-person instruction next summer to help students recover from learning losses because of the pandemic. So we are going to get to that point where students can learn again in person. My question for you, Steve, is are you thinking already about how something similar, summer school education to help students get back on track?
We've run a summer school program for the past several years. Last year, we ran it with 38 students completely. We don't do the traditional summer school model where students come in and take biology or English or science, because what we find then is we don't get enough students to run sections of classes. So what we've done for the past few years is we've run our summer school program based on proficiencies, and we've identified where students have fallen short in proficiencies, and teachers have worked individually or in small groups with students to help them make up those proficiency deficits, and then we grant credit for them as the summer progresses. One of our challenges with summer school is, the mindset, and this has happened for several years, that I don't go to school in the summer, therefore I'm not going to go to school in the summer. And so we do have families that opt out, and that can be a problem, and we really don't have a stick to say you must come to summer school. For various years, we've tried a couple of things. We've tried putting in a career and college, apprenticeship program that kind of goes along with summer school. We've tried good old-fashioned food programs. So we've tried various things to kind of entice students to come to summer school. But it really is something that we're working hard, and we'll start that process in January when we see our first semester students who have not been successful, and we'll be able to kind of begin to target those families and set up summer school programming. So the plan is, the short answer is yes, we've done it, and we're going to continue to do it this summer.
Thanks, Steve.
Sure.
Jody?
Hi, my question goes to Frank. I want to know if all that information that he put up will be on the web.
Yeah, it is on the website. If you go to the Windham Southeast School Board's agenda.
Yep.
Barb has all of those documents right under the agenda.
Good. Thank you, Frank.
Sure.
And Jody, if you go back to the previous meeting, the previous documents are there as well. And you can find the SU budget at the similar site on the SU website.
Good. I did miss the last meeting, so thank you very much.
Okay. Was it Mary? Did I hear, Steve, you were trying to coax into?
I was passing it off to Kelly because she's.
Oh, Kelly. Okay. Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you. It's great to hear about what's happening at the high school, Steve. We talk a lot, but I don't get to hear about all the plans in depth. It's really exciting to hear about it, especially as an alumni. So I think it's really great. So some of the priorities at Academy School, for a couple of years now as a district, we've been working on planning for Act 173 and really diving into the DMG report and its recommendations. So we have taken a few steps to adhere to some of those recommendations, one of which is to redo our educational support team structure, which John Sessions really headed up with a group of teacher leaders last year. And they presented about that at our most recent leadership council meeting, which was really great. And I feel really proud of the work that they have done and the system that's in place now. Part of that is, of course, to try to catch gaps for kids, whether they're social, emotional, or academic, and fill them before they become a need for a referral for things like special ed or other additional services. So we have put into place a pretty tight system of supports for interventions with our academic support teachers. We've slowly reduced some of our paraprofessional staff and built up our really highly skilled trained teachers, which is part of the Act 173 recommendations. There's a slight change to our Title I funding for next year. So one of our half-time academic support teachers will be funded locally instead of title funded for next year. But that position has been supporting K-3 literacy on sort of a coaching basis. They can quickly assess kids and inform the EST process, and they work with a bunch of different kids and teachers, which has been really great. So we have one person kind of dedicated to literacy and another academic support teacher who right now has been gracious enough to teach first grade, but in normal non-pandemic times will be coaching for math on a K-3 basis. So that's been an exciting shift for us to have people kind of specializing in the areas of content that they love, and they love to pursue professional development in those categories and then train the other teachers. So that feels really good. We'll also continue to prioritize our social and emotional learning work. Anna Ocasio, our counselor, has put a lot of time into the group of counselors that meet with Greg Stoller, and they have researched different curricula for social emotional learning. She's looking to purchase a curriculum that will probably serve the lower grades to start, but we'll see, how we feel about that and as we go on. And also giving some attention to Scott Kaltenbach and some restorative justice training that John Sessions also has really been a proponent of. Scott has come in and done a lot of different groups with us as a consultant, and he works with the district at large, but he's become an important part of our academy community. He helps facilitate our diversity staff meetings, and he is really enthusiastic about coming to do professional development when we have more days on a more normal basis that isn't dedicated to planning to re-enter school with all the new safety accommodations. And restorative justice, I think, even though we haven't been able to hold circles as much this year as we have in the past, the groundwork that was laid last year in that program has really served us this year, and it will continue going forward because it's such an important part of how kids treat each other at school. And it's really a notable difference. I think staff especially have been really great role models for kids. There's a lot of just eye contact, greeting, manners, all of the things that we practice that when conflict arises are really important to be able to have those skills to problem solve. So we'll get back into that work as well. I also have continued the funding for BEAC, the Bonnieville Environmental Education Center up on Bonnieville Road. They have expanded to work with all of our grade levels now, K-6, which is really exciting for us. A lot of the teachers take courses there and have really done some phenomenal unit development for science standards. So that's been great. And Joan Carey up there and her staff have been really accommodating. And we go up there, they come down to our campus. So that's a partnership that we really value and want to continue. We would love to continue pursuing our outdoor education and exploration. We've been purchasing some gear so that kids can be warm outside in all weather. We'd love to continue to make that sort of a focus of our professional development as the fall of 21 begins. And lastly, we've continued our funding for technology. Many of the interactive whiteboards that were so up and coming about, 10 years ago, now are not compatible with a lot of the new computers. And so we have to replace some projectors and get things working so they can talk to each other. So not, anything big change-wise, but definitely some exciting priorities that we feel really passionate about and we're enjoying.
I believe Julianne was going to present as well. So I'm sorry if you're receiving a volume of phone calls to different numbers at this time.
Thanks for the opportunity to present. So Dummerston School is a pre-K to 8 single strand school, as you know, so that always presents really unique challenges and very unique opportunities for our students. This is our second year offering pre-K at Dummerston School, so that continues to be an investment we're making, and we still have work to do in really making that space, both the indoor part of that space and the outside play area and learning area really match the needs of our students in our pre-K program. Molly Oglesby is our lead pre-K teacher. She comes to us with years of experience in pre-Ks in our community and is really lending her expertise to evaluating what should our space look like both outside and inside, and what kind of investment do we need to make. Of course, we are committed to having a full middle school program at Dummerston School, and that program is departmentalized. We offer band and a full sports program and leadership opportunities for our middle school students. So we want to continue to make sure that program is robust, and run that program through 8th grade. This is our first year having moved our school counselor to a full-time position. She had been at 80% the year before, and the timing could not have been better. She has been doing incredible work supporting families and students of Dummerston School through this crisis, of course. But she does direct instruction with classes, runs our middle school asset team, does so much one-on-one support for students. The amount of family support she does and programming is incredible. So continuing to have that full-time counselor, especially now that we've added a pre-K, is vital, I think, to the health and well-being of our school community. In terms of our professional development investments, this is our first year as a school really working with the developmental designs curriculum, which is in line with some of the work the high school has been doing, and is also something that students and staff at BAMS implement. And so we've been doing some in-house professional development this year, given that we have a pandemic and we're not welcoming in trainers. But we hope next year to work with some developmental design trainers to really continue to improve our work in that area. Developmental designs is a tier 1 social, emotional, and academic learning framework that really provides opportunities for students to build relationships, have autonomy, be challenged in their work, and really enjoy coming to school. So it's designed to really increase attachment to school and improve student learning. We also want at our school to have a culture of learning, almost like having a lab school. Not being close to a large university can make that challenging. And so we as a school last year, prior to the pandemic, were really trying to emphasize learning on a daily basis, through peer observations and opportunities for coaching among staff. So, in thinking about our teaching teams, we also want to add additional academic support and instructional coaching teaching staff. And that is in response both to allowing for that space and time for us to work collaboratively as a learning community, but also to support our students who, as Steve had mentioned, will just have very unique needs, and we will really be needing to individualize learning for students next year, as we've been doing throughout this entire experience. We also would like to continue our collaboration with BEAK and Food Connects. Those have been really fruitful relationships that have had a direct impact on our students and our teachers. Our teachers have been able to access incredible PD through BEAK, and that's been a very important relationship. We have a lot happening in facilities and grounds. This is our first year having an evening custodian. Dummerston School was the one school in the district that did not have an evening custodian, and the challenge with that was really that after school time, having community and teams in the building without school-based staff there. So we have solved that problem with having an evening custodian, and we do have a lot of needs, custodial needs, as a pre-K to 8 school in a relatively large building. So we feel adequately staffed at this point. We have a number of projects in facilities that need attention. Our playground is well overdue for a redesign and an overhaul. We have some pretty significant work that needs to happen just in making sure that our our flooring, our ceilings, our bathrooms are updated, that everything is ADA compliant. And so, part of the work and the planning last year, this year, and in years coming is really taking care of those projects in an organized way, so we can spread out some of that cost. We have, we also have a goal of offering a robust specials program. We're fortunate that we can share art and PE teachers with Oak Grove, and we have part-time library, music, and band. So we, all of those teachers are part-time, but we've been able to create a program so that we feel like our students can really access they can access a full specials menu, and we want to promote their learning in those areas. I think that is, looking at my notes, and I think I would just add too, as Kelly mentioned, definitely had to look at our tech budget with new eyes this year after what we've been through. Making sure that we have, that everything is up to date, and students have been able to access some software now that has been useful and will continue to promote learning, I think, in the years ahead. So we wanted to make sure to invest in software as well that has been useful in the pandemic and will be useful as students transition to their in-person learning 5 days a week. So thank you.
Emily, you have a question?
Yeah, Julianne, I just wanted a point of clarification. Thanks so much, everybody, for all the information. When I'm looking at the budget, though, was I correct in hearing that you were strategizing for future renovations, but really this year was only the playground, or are there expected other things that we're going to be looking at for Dummerston schools?
So this coming year, we'll be working on the playground. And then Frank and I have kind of worked on pacing out other items that need to happen. So, one section of flooring and one section of the ceiling, and pacing that out over time so that it's not too much of a burden in 1 year.
Thanks.
Sure.
Is that, Frank, were there any other principals when to talk about priorities?
I think that was the plan for the SD budget, and obviously more to come in our next meeting. And if you would like, David, I could give a very brief overview of the SU budget. We're glad to defer to you or the SU reps if you wish.
Well, I've got the things I wrote down in the minutes, which I think might be helpful. But so yeah, let me put those up and just kind of go over that, and then we'll see if there are questions. So you should see just a text document, the WSESU budget. Is that up there?
Yes.
Is that on your screens? Okay, so as you can see, the special ed budget, which is 76% of the SU, the supervisory union budget, and health insurance, which is 15% of it. 24% is outside placements and transportation. And Frank is going to chart these over give us some graphs to look at the way those fluctuate over the past 3 or 4 years. The increase in tuitions is what's driving the increase, and when you see the budget numbers, you'll see that. But most schools are at this point are level funded for the fiscal year, and the food service had some regulatory changes, which I think left us with a surplus, which is down here. because the USDA fully reimbursed meals for the entire year. So that our part of the payment, the cost of providing free or reduced lunches was taken over by them. So that's what all this is about. And the optimistic scenario is that we'll have about $400,000 of surplus in that food line, which we might be able to use for other things. So the total increase is 1.6% with the SU budget. Special ed is 3.5%. And the student number is down. The student number of special ed students is down. I wrote down 62, Frank. I recorded that. Is that accurate?
I don't think that's I don't think that's the total of all students. There are a few subsets, and I can look up. Shelley had a very nice handout I can refer to that gives us the total enrollment.
Yeah, so those are the sort of the big broad numbers in the SU budget. The actual administration is down, I think, a half a position. It's fewer people, and the special ed is up a little bit, and the total increase is a little bit. Primarily, it's from the outside placements. So any questions, or Shelley, anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, hi, David. I'm scrambling to find my child count numbers so I can look at that number of 62, because I think our overall child count was pretty level, if not up from last year. So I'm just getting my other computer open.
Okay, I'm not sure. Yeah, I looked at that and then I couldn't remember what that was. So good.
Yeah, so I'll just need a minute to come back to that.
Okay, and I'll just for new members of the board, the SU budget gets approved by the SU board, which includes one representative from each of the towns from our board, and then Carrie Amadon from the Vernon board. So in a sense, we get to vote on it, but then it goes into our budget. And once the SU board approves it, which will be Monday night, that's it. We don't get to change it. So and we've never actually reviewed it before on the local boards in the past. We never actually heard it. We just got the numbers. We had representatives, and then we just got the number which figured into the budget. And we would regularly hear complaints about not being able to change the SU budget once it's voted and not having a voice or any participation. So this is our first attempt to sort of share the big numbers. And if anybody has any concerns or questions about where that money goes, since it now includes special ed, and transportation was added a few years ago, and food service, it's a pretty big chunk other than just the administration of the district.
If we're waiting for Shelley, I can just let you know that I'm looking at that data sheet that we handed out, or Shelley handed out to the board, and as Shelley was saying, that the students, what we refer to as on-site, we're going from 367 students this year to projected 364. So as Shelley is saying, pretty level there. And David, I'm not sure what that 62 refers to, but overall, if you do find your data sheet that Shelley had given you, you'll see that it's relatively stable, special ed student enrollment.
Yeah, our current enrollment, we just did our child count as December 1st. That's our big data collection for the state. And we submitted, give or take around 438 students. And a projection for next year is around 437. That does not include the early childhood special education kiddos.
And And how does that compare to last year? Is that
Last
where-
year,
No,
yeah,
go ahead.
sorry. Last year it was around, according to, when we did this data at the same time, it was around 447.
Okay, so not much change across those.
Yeah.
figures.
So
Great.
it is down a little bit.
Great, thank you. Okay, so anything else, Frank?
I think you covered that fine.
Okay,
And,
great.
that document is also on the website.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we are at 8:30 and we have community reports and then unfinished business and then some new business. A lot of it is nuts and bolts, some of it is discussion. So I'm going to encourage us to move kind of quickly through the leadership council and committee reports. We had 6 leadership councils that met. I wonder if people have specific, we've obviously talked a lot about leadership councils already. If people have specific highlights they'd like to share, Putney, Oak Grove, Green Street, Dummerston, BAMS, and Academy, I believe at least had agendas this week or since the last meeting. So if there's updates from those leadership councils, would you please share them? You don't have to, and if it's not something that's really significant, we can move right on. Ruby?
I sent a report to the board, and so I won't review it again here. I just wanted to make sure that the request that Alexis Duquette is appointed to the Leadership Council for PCS is considered and acted on by the board.
Thank you. We can take that up now. Could I have a motion, please, to approve Alexis Duquette to the Putney Central Leadership Council?
So moved.
Thank you, Tim. And a second?
Second, Emily.
Thank you, Emily. It's moved and seconded to confirm Alexis Duquette to the Putney Leadership Council. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, Alexis is appointed. Thanks, Ruby.
Thank you.
Okay, Jackie?
Hi, thanks. Mark really touched on a lot of things that we talked about in the Leadership Council meeting, and then we had Leadership Council discussion. But one thing that did get a lot of conversation that I thought it was really interesting and important was the fact that there are some kids that over the course of the fall, early winter, have transitioned from either hybrid to fully remote or back based on the needs of the child and things of that nature. And it's the consensus is that to make a really good, thoughtful transition probably takes about a week to get it done. Like, it's not something that if you've been hybrid the whole time that you can just jump into fully remote and it's like no problem. There's like a transition involved in doing that, which is just not something that occurred to me, but I think that it makes a lot of sense. And I was glad to talk about it because I would imagine it's not unlike going from summer to back into school for the kids, kind of, you know, making that leap into something different. And we have a lot of kids coming up that are probably going to make a leap like that. So just to mention that what they've seen at Green Street is a thoughtful transition takes about a week, and probably other people have noticed that too, but I thought it was a good time to mention it.
Thank you, Jackie. That's good information to have. Okay, I'm going to move along to the committee reports. The Policy and Amendment Committee met, the Programmatic and Performance Equity Committee met, the Communications Council, the Social Justice Committee, and then the SESU Board also met. So if we could brief updates from those committees, please. Oh, and Emily, I'm going to propose that we leave the 2 potential policy recommendations to the next meeting when we have a little more time and share them then and ask to send them on to the policy committee.
Okay, sounds good.
Great. Thomas?
Yeah, so I'll just mention on the Social Justice Committee, we met to do a final interview with a possible vendor for training. And we've now gotten details from, I think, 5 different possible sources. And we're going to review what we found. And then our next meeting to make up our minds, see where we're going to go, is on January 12th at 4 p.m.
Thank you. Any other things from committee meetings that you want to share?
Hi, Dave.
Ann? Okay.
Yeah. The Policy and Amendment Committee met on the 7th, and we have reviewed some more policies, which will be updated soon. One on the policy on prevention of harassment of employees, one on limited English proficiency students, and a new policy, those are rewrites, and a new policy regarding students experiencing temporary housing insecurity.
Yep. And those are actually on our new business agenda for first reading. So thank you.
And we are continuing to work on the Crisis Task Force policy proposal.
Great. Excellent. Thank you. Emily?
I just wanted to mention that the Programmatic and Performance Equity Committee has changed their meetings to Monday night. So we will be the second Monday of the month. So that next meeting is Jan 11th at 5:30 p.m. And that will, I think, consistently move forward on Mondays rather than Wednesdays.
Great. And Michelle?
The Communication Council met this afternoon. We kind of already talked about the Leadership Council support earlier. We are ready. We should be ready when school goes back into session in January to distribute email sign up for board meetings, Leadership Council meetings, committee meetings. And that's going to be done through all of our media outlets so that it reaches as many stakeholders. And also conversation, beginning the grant work of figuring out how to create a monthly highlight that will be a collaborative effort from all of the committees, just so that our points of what policies are being discussed and created, so that we can put all that information in one place with a calendar so that stakeholders can see it in one place and know what's going on without having to go through many agendas. And on the agenda, about 3/4 of our agenda had to be tabled because the meeting was at 2 hours and we had other things to do. And there's just a lot of work to be doing at this level, but that's about it. We have plans to continue to meet the third Wednesday of each month as of now.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we'll move into new business. The first is to adopt the policies that we've had 2 readings and 10 days since the third reading. And it's policy D16, electronic communications between employees and students, policy F37, district equity policy, and F38, prevention of sexual harassment as prohibited by Title IX. So these 3 are up for adoption. Could I have a motion to approve these policies?
So moved. It's Ann.
Thank you, Ann. Could I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Sean. Any discussion? Kelly, I see your hand up. Is it related to the policy? You can talk anyway, but.
It is, yes.
Okay.
So it's the communication one. And I'm looking under 3A8, communications between an employee and a student between the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. An employee may, however, make public posts to social network site, blog, or other similar application at any time. I just want to make sure that we're clear that we're not restricting. I understand the intention behind this policy, but I just, especially with the remote learning and different people learn and work in different ways, and some people are early morning people, some people are late night people, and I just don't want to restrict, since this puts in times of the day and night. I don't want to restrict communication between students and teachers.
Okay, I'm gonna move that we table the D16 and just adopt F37 and F38 tonight, and we'll take that up. We'll have that conversation as a board. I don't want to do it tonight. We're way too late.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so could we amend the motion, or I want to change the motion to table D16 and to, well, we'll do them one at a time. F37 district equity and F38. So could I have a motion to, I think we have too many motions on the floor.
I withdraw my motion, Mr.
Thank you,
Chairman.
Ann. Thank you. Okay, so we have no motion on the floor. Could I have a motion, please, to adopt F37 district equity policy?
So moved.
Thank you, Ann. Second?
Seconded.
Thank you, Sean. It's been moved and seconded to adopt F37. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, it's the F37 is adopted. F38, prevention of sexual harassment as prohibited by Title IX. Could I have a motion, please, to approve F38?
So moved.
Thank you, Ann. Second?
Seconded.
Thank you, Thomas. Moved and seconded to approve F38. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the policy is approved. So we will do D16 on January 4th. I'll make a note, it's noted to table that. Now we have two other unfinished business. One is the Vermont School, whether Sean asked us to talk about the Vermont School Board Association, which is something we decided on in the past, and but he wanted to speak to it again this year. And we have consideration of whether to draft an article scheduling a district-wide vote to dissolve the merged district and return to local board governance structure. These are not issues that normally come to us. They're I put them in unfinished business because they're coming from the past, but these are not things in our normal operating structure. So because either one of them could take a long time, what I'd like to do is ascertain the degree of interest from the board about whether to take these up, and if we do want to take them up, then we'll table them. So first I'd ask Sean to maybe make a statement about your desires to School Board Association, and then make a motion, and we'll see if there's a second, and if there's a second, we'll take it up on January 4th. If there's no second, we'll be done with it. So Sean, why don't you go ahead and present and make your statement.
Okay, well, it was about a little more than a year ago that it was decided not to be a member of the Vermont School Board Association. And personally, I kind of miss it. It's a very valuable resource for one, for me personally. Any questions I have, it's a good sounding board. And the other is sort of leads into what the Vermont School Board tries to do, and I think in many respects does it successfully, and that is coordinate all school districts, all school endeavors throughout the state. They work with the legislature, they work with all the different districts, all the different supervisory union. So it's sort of a coalescence of all the information in one place. And in the past, I think it's been very helpful. And I think it would be worth having the WSESD rejoin after this time. Dan MacArthur was here for a while. I'm not sure if he's still here, but he is a representative to the VSBA in Southern Vermont. And he had some items that I think he wanted to speak on. So I know he was here for a while.
I am here, yes.
Oh, great.
Hi, Dan. Well, before we hear from Dan, I'd like to hear, to ask Sean, what would you like us to do? What is your motion?
Well, I could make a motion that the WSESD rejoin the VSBA at this time.
Okay, I appreciate that Dan's been here waiting, but is there a second to the motion? Okay, hearing none, we will move on. Thank you. Sorry, Dan. Sorry you had to wait. I'm sure it was an exciting meeting, though.
It was fun to watch, fun to listen to. Thanks. Bye-bye.
And the next one is consideration of the annual meeting article to schedule a district-wide vote to dissolve the SD and return to local governance structure. Again, I need to know if there's interest on the board in pursuing this. Any board, Ann?
Thanks, Dave. I don't know whether I want to consider this, but what I know is that every single member town voted in a landslide not to merge. I believe very strongly that it would be an affront to the people who sent us here and democracy in general not to consider dissolving this merger.
Okay, I see Liz, Jackie, Michelle, and Kelly all have something to say, and Jody Normando as well. So I'm going to take that as interest in this topic, and I'm going to reschedule it for our January 4th meeting. Okay, because we can't take the time to. This is a long conversation, and we really can't. We're 10 minutes. It's 12 minutes to 9 right now, so we will take that up in on January 4th. Next is new business. We have a pre-partnership agreement with the Mulberry. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me get this correct. It's a standard partnership agreement that we have with all of our pre-K partners. I cannot find it. The Mulberry Bush, which is part of a different organization. And the Mulberry Bush pre-K agreement is it's the Horizon Early Learning Program doing business as Mulberry Bush Independent School in Brattleboro. It describes the standards of the early learning program. It describes the district, what the district agrees to do. It's all pretty much basic boilerplate information. We have a liaison, and basically we pass through our business office the support from the state that goes to the Mulberry Bush and to all of our pre-K partners. So that's pretty much what this is about, and we need a motion to approve the pre-K partnership agreement with the Mulberry Bush preschool.
Jackie, so moved.
Who's that? I'm sorry, Ann?
It was me, and then Jackie was right after me, so
and Jackie seconded?
Second.
Okay, great. All those, is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, hearing none, that agreement is approved. Next is an Act 250 School Impact Questionnaire. Renault Gravel Incorporated has a development, I believe, at the Bridgman Quarry in Vernon. And we, as part of the SU, have to take an action. This basically is when somebody's planning a large development of any sort, the school district has to say that it's not going to put us out of business. It's not going to put hundreds of new students in the school or drive any students out of the school. So we basically have to, this Act 250 requires the school pass or complete a questionnaire saying there is no impact. Andy, do we have that questionnaire?
Yes, we have the questionnaire. Vernon passed this as well the other night. So this is just done on Route 142. Questions are basically, what schools under your supervision will provide educational services to families who live in this project? Because we have Vernon students at BAMS and BUHS, it would be all elementary, middle, and high school. Second question is, do these schools have the capacity to accept the additional students listed? There are no additional students listed. So this is not as if this was bringing in hundreds of new kids to the area that would overwhelm students. Do you have any other comments? There are really no other comments on this project from our office at least. And are you available after sufficient notice to answer questions related to the above statements at an Act 250 hearing? So pretty straightforward. This is basically the typical application that would go with the new development of any kind.
Great. So do I have a motion to, what do we do with that questionnaire? We just approve, or we say there's no
basically
impact?
you just approve me signing it and sending it off.
Okay, so
Carrie, I
motion.
think Carrie Amadon is still here too, but I saw her on the list. Carrie, that's what we did the other night, right?
Correct. When this first came through as a communication, I really was absolutely clueless as to how to handle this. And my father would be so upset with me now as a real estate attorney for not understanding Act 250, although he'd give me a really long lecture on its history. So I said to Barb and Andy, look, if it impacts us in our standing in the SU, let's make sure the SD knows about it. So that's why it got onto your agenda. We had a long talk about it last night, as Andy said, and we're fine with this.
Okay. So can I have a motion to approve Andy signing the non-impact agreement or the non-impact questionnaire?
So moved.
Was that Ann?
Yes, it was.
Thank you. And second, please.
So moved. Second.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Thomas. It's getting late. Moved and seconded to approve Andy signing the school impact questionnaire, lack of impact. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, we have agreed. Next is, these are new policies for first reading. They are attached to the agenda for all to review. This will be our first reading of D12, Policy on Prevention of Harassment of Employees. F29, Policy on Limited English Proficiency Students. And we have those are updated policies. And then we have a new policy, F39, Students Experiencing Temporary Housing Insecurity. And I recommend reviewing those. Those of us on the SU board have seen these already. I encourage people to have a look at them. Tonight's the first reading. We'll read them again in January, and then we'll approve them after that. So we're beginning the process with these three that we just finished with two of the previous three. So no further actions required on that. Next item is to change regular meetings to the first and third Mondays. And I polled the board, and this is fine with everyone and with Andy as well. So I just need a motion to change our regular meetings to the first and third Mondays.
So moved.
Thank you, Thomas. Could I have a second?
Before you vote, can we just double check Carrie to make sure that doesn't interfere with the Vernon meetings?
Sorry, when was that?
Carrie's, I think they're second and fourth for Vernon.
We are second and fourth.
Yeah.
Are we talking January here?
Yeah, from now on, yes.
We are second and fourth. There is a possibility due to budget planning, we might need to have a special in January on the 3rd, but we can work around that.
Well, the 3rd is I think is a Sunday.
I mean,
oh,
sorry.
The 3rd, I'm sorry, the 3rd week.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. But normally we are second and fourth and we keep to that, so should not be a problem at all.
Right, and this enables Andy to only have to set aside one evening or one evening
every week
for board meetings. It's not like every other Tuesday, every other Monday, and every other Wednesday.
Oh, come on.
Be every Wednesday, every Monday now. So no long weekends for Andy.
Is there good TV on Monday? I mean, let's make sure this works.
Monday Night Football for those that.
Oh.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair.
Yes.
If you move the meetings to Mondays, there's a good chance you're going to lose your board recorder. I have a conflict. I just want to let you know that.
Okay, thank you, Wendy. Well, obviously, we'll have to adjust, we'll have to figure that out. Michelle,
Yeah, I just had one question about that. Just because I just happened to look at January and saw that the 18th is a federal holiday. I think Martin Luther King's Day is.
it is Martin Luther King Day, yeah.
Will there be any kind of a plan? I just am imagining that that's when it's days off for our teachers and administrators and whatnot to have that them fall back and need to be here. Is there? I don't know. I don't know what Vernon does if a holiday falls on their board meetings or if that matters or if it's
Yeah, well,
relevant.
actually, Carrie's got her hand up. Maybe she can respond to that.
So every year this happens where at some point I chart out the year and there's always a couple every other year it comes out where it is a possibility that 2 of the 12 or 2 of the 24 meetings have a problem. So I try to chart it out in advance and then work with our team just to say, hey, can everybody do Tuesday? It happens. It's just the way we do it, but it always helps to look in advance and see if it's coming at a critical time.
Thanks. Yeah, so that's what we'll do. We'll have to find out. There will be federal holidays on Monday, so we'll have to adjust that. Any other questions? Oh, did I ask for a motion yet? No. Could I have a motion, please, to change our regular meetings to the 1st and 3rd Mondays?
So moved, Emily.
Thanks, Emily. A second, please.
Second, Ann.
Thank you, Ann. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye, can't leave.
Aye.
Yeah, I'm worried about it, David. We had such a hard time getting a recorder. I'm
Yeah.
a bit concerned.
Yeah, well, we'll have to talk about that, Liz. But,
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, next thing is the board evaluation. This is considered contracting with a community for a community service on board performance. I'm also going to recommend that we table that.
Sorry, David, for the minutes, can I get a count on that?
Was there a no? Did somebody vote nay?
I voted
Yes. I voted no.
Oh, I didn't.
Voted no.
Okay, I'm sorry, then we have to go by member then.
I voted no also.
And we're gonna have to go by, I have to go by members, so let me just, we'll start with Ann. On the motion to change to Monday, our regular meetings to the 1st and 3rd Monday.
With regret, aye.
Okay, Liz,
Nay. I'd like to see if we
Okay.
could find a different night.
yep, Thomas,
No.
Michelle, Michelle,
Sorry, I had voted yes, but I'd like to change it to nay. I think we need to be responsible, make sure we have a recorder before we make big changes.
okay, well, I think then the thing to do, obviously, I mean, I had polled everybody and everybody said it was fine, and now it's different, so we're gonna have to revisit and maybe find another day. So that's what we'll do. We'll also table this. And who made the motion? Thomas, did you make, no, who made the motion?
I did, Emily.
Originally did it, and then we talked about it, and then we made the motion again and ended. So,
Okay, well, so we need to withdraw the motion formally, so we'll do
all right,
that.
then I withdraw the motion.
Okay, and we'll also take this up. No, we're gonna take this up. Well, we're gonna just have to table it for the time being. To non-specific date. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so that is it for our business public comment. And Jody, you've had your hand up for a long time.
Yes, I have. I've had my hand up since your number C of unfinished business.
Yep.
Since then, because I had a lot I wanted to say, but what I want to say now is that my concern is you've got something on the agenda. And like Dan MacArthur sat through the whole meeting because it was on the agenda. A bunch of other people here have sat through the whole meeting because it was on the agenda. And I just don't feel that that's right. And I have some concerns with kicking the can down the road, because as you and I know, but maybe not a lot of the board members know, that all over the state that they are having issues with people wanting to get out of the merger. And just recently, like today, it came out that one of the superintendents in Mount Abrams, I believe, came up with a proposal to get away from not voting for, in their bylaws, they had a vote, has to be taken in the towns like we do before you can close a school. So he is kind of going around that and finding out repurposing. And the West River Valley, which is Windham Central, they're having all kinds of issues. Westminster's getting out. Halifax has already done it, and it's all over the state. And I just don't want to see the can pushed down the road. My question to you is, it looks like you're just going to the annual meeting for a vote before you go to the town vote. And I don't know whether that's necessary or not, but it's really just kicking the can further down the road. So I will be here on January 4th, and I'm sure that others will be too. But I really have an issue with something's on the agenda and somebody's here to talk about it. We should be able to talk about it. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Jody. I just want to point out that it's 9 o'clock and we can't, and we have an executive session ahead of us. And it's unrealistic to expect people to stay long enough to do all of these things in depth. And we've had a very long and productive meeting, but we're just going to have to put these off. Tara, something that's not on the agenda you'd like to address?
I just want, thank you for letting me speak. I would like to resound what Jody just said about the agenda items. It's very disappointing not to be able to talk about things that are on the agenda due to items that took longer than usual, which is fine. I enjoyed hearing all of the gratitude from our schools. I also would like to voice that I have a concern about changing the date or the time, the meeting days. And I would like you to really think hard about that, just because everyone is pretty ingrained in this Wednesday meeting time frame. And so there would have to be a lot of work on re-communicating to the community on any changes that are made. Thanks.
Thank you, Tara. Kelly?
I just want to very quickly speak to Jody's point. And I wanted to, from my perspective, I wanted to encourage people, if they have information, if they have links, if they have articles, if they want to send an email to the board. For me, it's much easier to read an email beforehand, and then I have a lot of the, or review an article beforehand if they think it supports their position. And sometimes it's helpful for us to have that background, and then they can come present their case, and then some of the information we already have in our head. So sometimes it's good to be prepared like that. So from my perspective, I appreciate having email communications, whether it's an article, a link to an article, just an opinion, or a request or that sort of.
Kelly, I'm not understanding if you're speaking to something specific that we did tonight that you.
Yeah, Jody was, I'm sorry. Jody was talking about in response to the question of the merger and the unmerger and that sort of thing. And I guess I'm just speaking to, if people have specifically about this, but I guess in more general terms as well, if someone has information that they feel that in relation to this topic is helpful for us to understand or be aware of, I appreciate seeing the emails with things, with links to articles, with people's opinions, with whatever it is they're requesting us to consider, whatever it is. So I just want to encourage the community to communicate to us.
Thank you. And I just would like to point out that we regularly have complaints from a variety of places on the length of our meetings. And now people complaining about not being long enough. So I'm running out of patience, and so we can't satisfy everybody. And if you want to send me suggestions or offer ways to make the meeting shorter, that would be great. But I just save me the, oh, that's enough said. Jody, is this about something not on the agenda?
I thought you wanted me to answer that question when Kelly.
No, I don't. I want us to get into executive session.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other items not on the agenda? Public comment on non-agenda items? Okay, hearing none, I need a motion to move into executive session for personnel matter 1 VSA 313, where premature public knowledge would put the board or the parties involved in to disadvantage.
So moved.
Thank you, Thomas. Michelle, second?
Yep.
Thank you. So we move into executive session at 9:09. I'm going to pause the recording.
I think we have to vote.
Oh, yeah.
Don't we?
Okay.
And
Yep.
we have to invite anyone in who might.
Yes, thank you. It's late. I'm losing things here. Yeah, we'd like Andy to join us, the superintendent to join us. And I will put Wendy and Rich in the waiting room. And good night to everyone else.
Don't we have to vote to go into executive
Oh,
session?
thank you. All those in favor of executive session?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. We are now in executive session at 9:09.
Sorry, just in case.
Oh, no, thanks. It's hard to keep track of all this stuff. Thank you. Great. We are rising from executive session at 10:06, and I am taking the new business D, changing the regular meetings to the first and third Mondays, off the table and putting it back on the table for discussion right now. And I'm just going to mention Tuesday and Thursday and see if, first let me just say that the reason that we have to change, I want us to change, and I hope we change, is because Emily has coursework. Emily, would you want to share that?
Sure.
Thank you.
So I had reached out to David maybe about a month ago now, saying that I had gotten my schedule in for actually the whole of next year and the following year. And one of my classes is I'm pursuing some training to become a doctor is on Wednesday nights now. And it's not really negotiable, and I've already been in the program, so I don't really have an option. So I reached out to David in hopes that something could be adjusted. And I knew it was a big ask, and I didn't know if it could be adjusted at the start of the semester or maybe in March. I have a 3-year term, and I love being on the board and collaborating with you all. But it was kind of hard and fast. I don't really have another option. So at this point, if the meetings couldn't be moved, which I understand if everybody can't, not everybody can just adjust to my schedule, then I would only be able to make it from 6 to 7 until somebody else could then maybe take over my role when the election comes up. So I share that with you all just to see, are there any other options for a board meeting? And it's not like I could do second and fourth Wednesdays. I just can't do Wednesdays in general now. So yeah, thanks for your consideration.
So that's why I polled everyone, and everyone said that Monday would work. I didn't think about our board recorder. I was thinking of board members and administration. And so then we wound up where we are now, which is we need to look for another option. So are people available on Tuesday? All right, maybe if you're not available on Tuesday, would you say so now, please? Well, it looks like we'll meet first and third Tuesdays.
There's no conflict with the union, I mean, with the WSESU?
No, they meet Mondays.
Okay.
So, okay, so could I have a motion then to change our regular meetings to the first and third Tuesday?
So moved.
Was that Thomas?
That was.
Okay, and second?
Seconded.
Thank you, Tim.
Can
So,
I just ask one question?
sure.
Emily, the schedule, is this for like a semester or is this for a longer term commitment?
So it's actually the professor who I'll be working with. The classes that I need will be on Wednesdays now until August, and then again next January till the following August.
Okay.
So it's kind of like for 2 years, but I could technically change it September through December because we're off at that time. But I don't think that's really helpful.
Yeah, no, jumping around a lot. If it was just for like 3 months, I would have recommended that we give it a time frame, but
yeah,
sounds like a long-term thing.
And?
Well, I'm perfectly happy to move meetings until Tuesday. I'm not sure that having tabled this conversation in open meeting, having booted everyone out, that we're allowed to have a vote on it.
Well, we're back in open meeting, so.
Right, but you told
well, we have to schedule our next meeting, and so if it's illegal, we're gonna have to pay the fine or whatever, because we have to schedule a meeting, and we've got a vacation in between, and we don't have a meeting, an open meeting to make this, to table it to. So I don't think we have a choice.
David,
Yes.
what if we scheduled our next meeting and didn't really, knowing that we had the conversation about how Tuesdays seems to work for everyone, and did we confirm with Wendy? Did she confirm that Tuesdays are okay with her?
She didn't say it wasn't when I asked everyone.
Nobody
Okay,
asked me, and I'm not a board member, so I'm not going to assume that I was asked.
Are you available on Tuesday, Wendy?
First and third, I'm pretty sure I am. I don't have anything offhand that I know is a definite conflict. It may interfere with some things, but I'll manage.
Okay.
So David, maybe we can just sort of, I also shared that concern. Thank you, Anne, for bringing that up. What if we just said, okay, well, we're going to schedule our next one. And then with the information that we have, knowing that probably Tuesdays are the best time, we can kind of in open meeting, so we don't get, so that we do the right thing and do it in front of other participants, the public. We can just sort of kind of like concrete our meeting days at that time.
Thank you. We can do that. And if it wasn't 10 o'clock at night, I would have remembered that our meetings don't have to all be regular, but if they're not regular, we have to warn them ahead of time. So all we'll do is have Barb warn a meeting for Tuesday, January 5th, and it won't be a regular meeting. It'll just be a warned meeting, legal, and we will then vote on the 5th to all of this everything that's been tabled till the 4th will be moved to the 5th, and we'll just have our meeting on Tuesday and then make that our regular night. Thank you for solving that problem for me.
David, would you work with me a little bit outside of this? Maybe this would be indicate like a press release or something, just so that if it, or maybe after the 5th when we vote on it, so that it's publicized that this will be our new things, so that
or we could put something out saying the next meeting is on a Tuesday and we're going to be discussing having them all on Tuesdays, and put that out as a press release. Yeah, and Barb would certainly help with that.
Okay.
Great. Yeah. Any other? So we're not moving it. We're just I don't think we have to vote to schedule our next meeting. I think I can just do that with Barb.
I think
So,
you're right, Dave.
yeah, so we will, we'll be meeting on the 5th, Tuesday, the 5th, and we will go on from there. So change your calendars if
Thank
you
you, everyone.
automatically lined up all the Wednesdays for the rest of your life.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Chair. You have a motion on the table. Has someone withdrawn that?
I have not.
I think what we're doing is we're tabling that motion until the next meeting. Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Table to the 5th.
I don't know
Okay,
if
so-
everyone, I don't know if everyone could hear me, but thanks for kind of the adjustment or the potential adjustment and kind of working through this with me.
You're welcome.
Well,
Thanks for
David,
doing
I
what
was
you're
just-
doing, Emily.
David, I was just going to say, what would we do without the recorder? This is just the reason why we need to be aware of.
Well, we have a clerk who, and for the first year, the clerk took all the minutes, and Thomas took them for a while this year until we found Wendy. And so we would do the clerk and then try to find someone that we could hire to take the minutes. Board reporters have not, Wendy may be with us for years, but they don't last long.
I recognize that, David. I was just kind of being facetious because she caught the motion that wasn't addressed.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah, and it's way too late for me to pick up the intricacies of human conversation tonight.
May I comment?
Yes, please.
Because I want to set the record straight. I took minutes this entire year.
Good.
Thank you.
And Wendy's minutes are probably the best I've ever seen. So
They're very comprehensive.
we
They
do
really
have
are.
to.
Yeah.
We do have to bow down a little bit to Wendy. We are not worthy.
Sean, you are worthy. But thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, thank you, Ann.
There being no further business before this board, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
We've rushed to second the meeting, the adjournment. Okay, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 And if anybody wants, I'll play that snow song again if anybody wants to hear it again.
It's a wine night. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Happy snow day. Happy snow day.